Oh my god. Alright, okay, we're streaming. Dang, man. Alright. Well, we're doing it.
Yeah, we are. Watch now.
We are. Alright, okay.
Sorry about the delay. You wouldn't believe the amount of technical difficulties that we've had. If you can't tell by how flustered my face is, and well, Simon always is cool. He always keeps it mentally cool. But we are so glad that you guys can join us. My Lord, what a doozy setting this up was. But we're gonna get to it, right, Simon?
Yeah, we always do. I ain't even tripping about it. Not really. So, yeah. Alright, so sorry about that. Took us a minute. For those of you who are joining us here, just know that this whole thing will be available on YouTube and anywhere you can listen to podcasts. You're probably listening to this right now or watching it right now. We know we started kind of early here at 5, but that's because we have 5 levels of football to go through, at least 10 teams to talk about on each level. Alright, so it's going to be a lot. So we wanted to start early here, just to respect our time so that we don't get done at 10 or so. And so that's why we're starting at 5 instead of our usual 7 or 6 p.m., I guess, prime time spot. So there you go. It is what it is. But here we are. The Colorado high school football season will be starting as of right now in 2 days. We're recording this on August 23rd, 2022. I guess technically Pueblo West played Grand Junction last Friday. Max Preps was bugging out, by the way, but that happened. Pueblo West did beat Grand Junction by something like 20 points or whatnot. A little bit of work to get in before they hit the meat of their schedule here. So there you go. But overall, the season for most teams will start soon here. And so what we got going on is our first ever Colorado preseason power rankings. Every week, we'll update these rankings based on, who these teams win or lose to, or, if other teams begin to win, then maybe they sneak up into these rankings as well. So that's how that's going to work. Cody, do you want to talk about, I guess, kind of our grading process with this and how our point system works and how we decide on our overall Playmakers Corner power rankings?
Yeah, so if you haven't been following, we have previewed every single Colorado high school football team in Colorado, classifications 1A through 5A, like we're going to talk today. So if you haven't, go ahead and take a look at all those previews. Obviously, throughout the summer, Simon and I conversing a lot about our power rankings, talking about teams, attending Chassa Media Day, which go ahead and check out on TikTok. Coach V got lots of great footage from there, and we were very blessed to be able to attend. But I digress a little bit. We did a ton of research on these teams. So Simon and I individually both chose ranked 1 through 10, who we thought was, the top 10 teams in each classification, with a little bit of spillover in some areas, some 11, some 12s. But ultimately, there's plenty of ties for basically more than 10 teams to be in all of these top 10 power rankings. But the way that we do it, if you're ranked number 1 by one of us, you get 10 points. Number 2, 9 points, so on and so forth. And then that composite score between those teams is what's going to decide our top 10. Like I said, there's some ties involved, but, this research is based off of, obviously, coaching staff movement or anything that we've been alerted to of that nature, as well as, graduated seniors from last year, returning playmakers this year, as well as, the schedule for every single team. We did a window of wins, and, that they're ultimately going to fall somewhere within that range of wins, according to our projections and research. And from there, boom, you have our PMC preseason power rankings. Am I missing anything, Simon?
No, that is pretty much. I
think that was a good run through.
Yeah, that's pretty much correct there. Yeah, I mean, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna start with 1A. We're gonna work ourselves up, and then in addition, with every power ranking, we're gonna start obviously at 10, and then work our way to the number 1 spot. We'll have 2 minutes here to talk about each of these teams. This is just a good way to kind of keep us on track so that we don't just stay rambling and whatnot. But these 2 minutes, we'll talk about the teams and whatnot, why they're ranked where they are, and so forth, or whatever we could fit in these 2 minutes, and then we'll just keep going down the line until we get to the end. And after I can't talk, oh my god, after we reveal all of the teams and where they are ranked, we are going to go ahead and show like an overall viewing of the rankings and whatnot, and then each have kind of a closing argument / closing statements here, just talking about, you know, these rankings, and then talking about potentially some teams that did not make our top 10, but we personally had them ranked. And so we'll also reveal our personal rankings as well. So there you go. Cody, are you ready to get this thing started here?
I mean, I gotta be, since I'm up to bat here first. Isn't that right, Simon?
Yep, and so let me go ahead and introduce you here, but at number 10, we're starting in 1A, mind you, but at number 10 here, we got Flatirons Academy. Cody, you want to go ahead and take it away and talk about Flatirons here?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I mean, first off, kudos to Flatirons Academy for all they've been able to accomplish. This is a very young program and a very young team that has already done so much. I mean, last year they narrowly missed the playoffs at 6-3, but they return a lot of their scrimmage yards. I mean, you get under center Nolan Shepard, who had 1,300 total yards, 15 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns, coming back into the mix. You also have the running back Glowicki, who returns following a season that almost saw him run for 1,000 yards. But, you know, in the 9-game season that they did have, he averaged 100 yards per game. So if you put that over the course of a normal season, you're going to have a 1,000-yard season. You also get leading receiver Michael Kingery, who will return after averaging nearly 30 yards per catch. And then you also have some studs on defense. You know, Danny Rodriguez, he's going to improve, I think, from his 4.5 sacks last year. And, you know, he also had 5 hurries. So if he converts some more of those, that'll be good. And then they also have their leading tackler, Tucker Ryan, returning after he almost eclipsed the century mark in tackles, as well as, you know, recorded nearly double-digit tackles. And so at the original time of my projection, they only had 6 games on their schedule. And so, you know, looking at their whole schedule now, I do want to say that they are, you know, originally I said 4-2 and, you know, upwards from there basically. And now if you look at their schedule, they have filled it all the way out. They do play 9 games once again this year. And I think that this is honestly a 7-2 win kind of season. And I think that you have a window of wins between 6, they could be 8-1. In all honesty, if the ball falls their way. I mean, they have a pretty manageable schedule, so if they lose any more than 2 games, they could end up with a really great record like they did last year and miss the playoffs. But I really think that in league, they're going to win those games that they didn't win last year, and they're going to end up 8-1 or 7-2 and be in the postseason this year in 1A. And that is what lands them at the number 10 spot.
Boom, perfect.
Ooh, look at that.
Right on time.
Like a whole second.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I respect it. But yeah, there you go. That is Flatirons Academy. Hey, dangerous backfield. You know, in 1A, dangerous backfields, they win games. That's how it is. So, boom, there you go there. Let me go ahead and reset this timer here real quick here before I talk about the number 9 team. And by the way, this is preseason, so honestly, take it with a grain of salt. Like, I don't know how much y'all care about NFL preseason, but it should probably be the same amount as these rankings here. It's just to get a vibe, right? But moving on, though, that is Flatirons Academy at 10. At number 9, we got Banning Lewis Academy out of Colorado Springs here. Let me go ahead and let this video load here. But basically, here, let me start my timer before I get ahead of myself. But basically, here's what it comes down to. Last year went 5-3. Basically just missed the playoffs here. It came down to a playoff game against Payton, and they lost it. It was a pretty close game. That was a very good Payton team from last year. And so they ended the season 5-3, just looking outside here. But going into this season, they're looking to be pretty strong here despite losing their quarterback Caden Levi, who did throw for an impressive 1,272 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6 picks, also had 5 rushing touchdowns and 390 yards. Don't get it twisted, he is a very big loss, along with some other athletes like Nate Early, Carson Faber, but they are returning a very, very talented core, specifically this running back core, held down by Holden Stennett, Adrian Teecha of Fleetus, I want to say, and Riley Dotson. These guys were super productive, made up the majority of the run game. Last year, Stennett, he had 437 yards. Teecha Fleets, he had 353 yards, and Dotson had 280 yards. Dotson also being one of the lead tacklers on this team, leading a pretty experienced defense here. Look, Banning Lewis Academy, they're a very young program. I believe this will be their 3rd year of existence, and they've found a lot of success early on here, and it's really only been a matter of time before they make the playoffs, and this is probably going to be their year. They have a very strong backfield, they're very big up front, they have a big boy in Braden Skinner, who's a very dominant defensive tackle. I believe he's only a junior as well. They have another great athlete here in Nick Vigil, who is one of the only seniors on this team. This Banning Lewis Academy team, they're looking to take over this league and go ahead and punch their way into the playoffs, and they're gonna beat some pretty solid teams on the way here, hopefully, as they do that. So boom, there you go. That is Banning Lewis Academy. They're gonna go ahead and make a run here, and I see that based off of their backfield. So there you go.
Just a little over the timer, but overall great summary, Simon, and very interesting to have some younger programs here at the top of our power rankings here in 1A. It's exciting for both, the 1A classification and Colorado football in general. So kudos on that, and kudos to these programs, these young programs, I should say.
Yes. But Cody, do you want to introduce our next team here?
Yeah, up next is one of the best mascots in all of Colorado high school football. And I'm talking about the Holyoke Dragons, way out east in what I like to call Nebraska, Colorado, but we'll keep them inside of our borders. And, let's go ahead and jump into it. Simon, do I get a ready, set, go? No, you already went. I'm on a delay. But anyways, last year they went 5-5. They're in a really tough league is what it comes down to. I mean, all their losses were to playoff teams. You're talking losses to Lyman, Yuma, Ray, and Florence during the regular season, and then a crazy game that they lose to Meeker. And they do graduate one of the best talents, one of our top 5 senior linebackers from last year, actually, in Miles Sprague, who we think is a D1 athlete. He's doing his thing at CSU Pueblo. So who's going to fill some of these gaps? And when I look at this team, there is another Sprague in the wings here. That's Wyatt Sprague. He's a great athlete as well, quarterback / defensive back. He records a ton of interceptions. He's a pretty efficient guy. I think he's going to take a huge step forward this year. And I think that this secondary is, the fact that it's going to be so intact is what's going to allow these Dragons to fly. I mean, Bryson Dirks and Cash Weber, together they had 27 pass deflections this past year. And, they're also able to move the chains on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll see their receiving output definitely take a step forward. And I think that, both these guys can also play the run really, really well. And they also have a Tyson Mossentine who's going to be returning to the receiving core. All in all, you have a pretty solid receiving core coming back, and you have a solid pass defense coming back, which I think is going to help out significantly. But, the class of 2024 is very strong, so I have a lot of faith in the future of this team. But, I think that this year there's going to be a lot of learning experiences, especially in league. They may take a step backwards, but because of strength of schedule, and if they play these same teams very close, we're going to see them back in the postseason.
Boom. There you go there. That is Holyoke. Don't have too much more to say about them here. Holyoke, they have a great quarterback over there, so, anything is possible. But let's go ahead and keep this thing going here. Let me reset. I have to keep remembering to reset the timer. But
otherwise, you're going to be running on free time. That's not fair.
But right here, we got Monte Vista. Let me go ahead and start this timer here. So going into this season, I think they're going to be very strong. And a lot of that is partially in thanks to D'Angelo Archuleta and this linebacking core, which is extremely tough here. By the way, last year went 6-3, just lost in the playoffs in the first round. Kind of gave Florence a little bit of a fight here. Only lost to them 23-0. And so going into this year, they're really going to be, building on top of that success. And like I said, starts with D'Angelo Archuleta. I think right here, he's going to be their lead back for them, along with Keegan Gunter. Both of those guys are going to really carry this offense and grind some teams into a pulp. Look, this Monte Vista team, they're pretty big up front as well, and it shows. I did hear some things about them doing very well against some of our top teams here on this list, and that is a very, very good sign here. And so if Monte Vista is, if they're going to be successful running the ball, it's going to be ran through those two guys there, and they're going to score a bunch of touchdowns and control the clock. And then let me go ahead and give some credit to their defense here, led by Jack Noonan. As a sophomore, he actually led the team in tackles, I believe, from his linebacker spot with 90 tackles, and was one of the top tacklers in all of the state in 1A and in the state as well, I guess. So there you go. And on top of that, you also have a big boy in Alejandro Felix at defensive tackle and offensive line as well. Last year, Alejandro Felix, he had 67 tackles and 5 sacks as the sack leader and was a big time contributor to this team. By the way, a watch list guy. And so I'm looking at this Monte Vista team. I think they're going to have a very strong defense, and they're going to have a couple running backs that are going to be able to grind some teams out. Also, be on the lookout for this young quarterback they're going to roll out here. He could, put up some numbers for them. So there you go. That is Monte Vista.
Rock and roll. I like this. I like this format. It's pretty healthy for us. This might be something that we look forward to more often in the future. But, that being said, we got another team on lock here. Don't mind me squatting down real quick. But, Simon, you mind if I just go ahead and jump into the next team on our power rankings here?
Go for it. I'll start the clock.
All right. Well, right here, as we start to pass that threshold of the halfway point here, is Strasburg. And, they were a playoff team last year, and they went on an incredible run to finish the season strong and, make the postseason after kind of stumbling out the gate a little bit. You could see a lot of their youth kind of in action, kind of putting things together, figuring out what it meant to not only play as a bunch of talented individuals, but also as a football team. So, they had some things to iron out kind of early, but all in all, they were a very successful team last year, and they have a ton of returning playmakers. You get interception leader Hayden Turner coming back. You're going to get Bergstrom coming back in the secondary. Athlete Caleb Hart, who can play wide receiver, running back, quarterback, linebacker, defensive back. He's all over the place, and he's going to contribute all over the field. And, he stepped up big time for them last year, filling in at quarterback. But I think a big return that's coming back is, a incoming junior quarterback in Landon Martin, who did miss basically all of last season with a broken collarbone. He had a lot of things to kind of work out in his game as well. And I think that, this season is going to be kind of a growing process for him, as well as the rest of this offense. But, he does have some help here. Zach Rushman and Zach Marrero were both amongst the leaders and tacklers on this defense. They're going to return to the defense and try and hold that down. And then, Marrero is very explosive on the offensive side of the ball, being a 1,000-yard rusher as a junior last season. And so, they have balance on their offense returning. They have some guys who caught some touchdowns. And I think all in all, this is going to lead to a very solid season for Strasburg. I think that their window of wins is anywhere between 5 and 8. That's a pretty big range, to be fair, but this is a very young team. It's a team that's, unproven in a couple of ways, but all in all, has the talent to make a push to the postseason and be in this, amongst the top in rankings.
Boom.
Ooh.
That's pretty good. No, absolutely agreed. In my opinion, they have one of the most skilled one of the most skilled skill positions here. I can't talk here if you can't tell here. I'm trying to balance a couple of things.
We're working through it.
But they have one of the most talented skill positions in the entire state. I mean, hey, they made the final day of that 7v7 Broncos thing, right? Which, it is 7v7, but they got some big guys up front, including Al Dickens, who is a watch list guy, by the way. So, there you go. But, Cody, I believe these next couple teams are actually your teams. So, if you want to introduce the next one, go for it.
Yep, I do have to take a deep breath here before I really get into it. But you know what? Let's go ahead and jump into it. This is a team that I got to see live last season. Instantly hooked in what was one of the most classic games last season. And that's Wiggins here, out east once again. A lot of powerhouses out in the eastern area. But, Wiggins here, they went 6-4 last year. I chose them to win in the first round of the playoffs, and they stumbled a little bit. But honestly, no worries, because the majority of this team is coming back. I think there is Mohammed Ibrahim, who was the leading tackler and a very solid offensive lineman. But returning back to the fold, you do get his younger brother, who's going to be coming back, and in Leif, who, he's a great interior offensive lineman, and, he's a great interior defensive lineman. He's somebody who can kind of move around the front 7 too, and I think that his, role will reflect what Mohammed was asked to do quite a bit last year. But, they have an offense that can shoot with anybody in the state. You got Cole Kerr, leading rusher and passer, over 3,000 scrimmage yards, 42 total touchdowns. What is there really not to like? He did throw a handful of interceptions, but, I think that that's going to come down a little bit this year. He has his top targets coming back in Omar Perez, who caught for over 800 yards and 14 of his 27 throwing touchdowns. Trey Fasiki is a very solid tight end who uses, good frame, good size, got up to 578 yards. And I think, on defense, he's also a problem on the line, whether he's at edge or whether he's at backer. Just a very physical force. Cole Kerr plays safety for this team. You see a lot of two-way guys on this 1A level. And, all these guys are very talented. Pepper Rusher, who was, a defensive playmaker of the year last season, he's obviously going to want to repeat that, if not improve from that campaign. So you're returning all players who recorded a tackle, you're returning the majority of the scrimmage yards, and you're going to return back to a level of dominance. You're going to get up some wins. I give them, once again, a 5 to 8 range, because they just haven't shown me the ability to get over the hump of some of the perennial powerhouses in 1A, but they are still going to be a very solid team and a contender this year. It's just up to, these young players if they can take that step forward.
Boom. There you go. Absolutely agreed. I like how Wiggins and Strasburg are basically back-to-back. Cody, you and I will be going to that game here next week, September 2nd in Strasburg. That should be a big matchup that should shake up these rankings. Look, I said Strasburg, they have a very talented skill group. So does Wiggins. I think Wiggins is right there with them. They have a very talented quarterback in Cole Kerr, Omar Perez. I know they're returning the running back, Leif Ibrahim. He's another watch list guy. They should be dangerous. They should. In my opinion, they should definitely get past the first round of the playoffs. Let's start there, and then potentially make some noise. So there you go. There.
And we're gonna keep going. You're gonna get real tired of my voice here, but that's just the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes. But we do have a 3-way tie. Just to be said here. And I think that this is, a decent opportunity for me to whisper. I had these guys at number 2. And, with our averages, there ended up being a 3-way tie with these 3 teams that are all very talented. And this team right here, who's tied for number 2, is Lyman. You know them. They're the winningest program in Colorado history as far as football goes. They have been dominant. They were looking for a 3-peat last year and fell just, a half quarter shy, essentially, in, a game that could have gone either way with injury depending, right? So very close state last year. They're used to winning state. So, even though they're disappointed, the standard is still high. Lyman still rinsed basically every team behind them in these rankings, and they rinsed teams in front of them as well at varying points. But, for this Lyman Badger team, all eyes are going to be on Gabe Schubarth, who is the second fiddle on this team at running back. He ran for 1,231 yards. He was also second on the team in tackles to Kai Bandy. Both big shoes to fill. And, something that he's going to have to address on his own this season, as opposed to, maybe getting some help from elder guys, right? So Gabe, I think that he's candidate for Offensive Playmaker of the Year coming up into this season. That's the assumption. But then, there's some question marks in some other areas. But, Lyman's a small town, and I'm pretty sure that they have a lot of younger siblings that are ready to, win rings just like their older siblings did, or, pick up that tradition. I mean, you have a younger sibling in Jordan Rockwell, who I assume was related to Brady Rockwell, who was one of the big contributors last year. Then you also have some big offensive linemen to fill some shoes. I mean, look, Eli Wyzinski and Chance Cannon are not easy guys to replace. We even talked to them at Media Day about that. How are you supposed to replace that leadership? And, I think that these linemen are a bit more soft-spoken, but they're not any smaller. They are actually significantly bigger. And so, they're going to try and use that same lineman pound-in Badger runway and, push their way to another state appearance is the assumption. And, I always bet with Lyman until they prove me wrong, basically. So that's a quick synopsis on the Lyman Badgers. Ooh, I went way over time on that one.
No, it wasn't too bad. You were only a couple
so
seconds over.
Much to talk about.
You're all good. You're all good. But totally agreed about Lyman though. Look, these next three, all three of these teams that are tied at 2, I feel like that's pretty accurate, to be honest with you. And Lyman is right there. I think this is a team that I could definitely see going to state here. I think they're definitely a contender. I mean, how could they not be, right? We got to see them at Media Day, and golly, is their line huge, massive. For not just for 1A, but by most standards, they're pretty big boys, out there. So they got some guys that are just gonna clear the way. What?
I said for real.
Yeah. And plus, you got a power back in Gabe Schubarth, who's a north and south runner. He's not going to dance around. He's going to put his pads down and run you over straight up. And so I'm really looking forward to watching this Lyman team play. Got a lot of faith in them. Also, shout out to our guy, Logan Bottier. Hopefully I'm saying your name right, but he transferred from Florence to Lyman. And so Lyman is getting a pretty stud linebacker here, who's only a junior, I believe. So he's just getting started, really. So there you go there. But let's keep it going. Like I said, these next 3 teams are basically tied at 2. And so the next one I want to talk about is Centauri, your reigning champs, and the team that basically ended this iteration of the Lyman dynasty here. Let me go ahead and pull up the film so that I could have something to watch as I speak here. Boom and boom. But here we got Centauri here. I mean, look, last year, one of the only teams in the state to go undefeated and win state, obviously. The only other team that did that is in 2A. We'll talk about them later here. But they basically blasted a bunch of teams here. Now, they are losing some guys. They're losing Mason Clonch, who is not only our 1A MVP, but he was our second best senior running back in the state last year, which was really impressive. They're also losing some studs in Baron Holman, their quarterback Byron Shawcroft, who really turned up for them last season, Danny Brady, Zach Burr, bunch of guys. But here is the thing about Centauri here. They do have some guys returning, some guys who actually got some pretty significant play time as an underclassman, as a younger guy, and they produced in the role they were in, pretty impressively, honestly. And one of those guys is Devin Brady last year on only 42 carries. So just think about that, 42 carries. He ran for 493 yards and 6 touchdowns. Also caught 23 receptions for basically 400 yards and 7 touchdowns. And on defense, he had 66 tackles and 3 picks at DB. He will be, in my opinion, the next star for Centauri here, the main guy. Now, he isn't built like Mason Clonch, who's a 6'1", 200-pound beast who could run and do all that great stuff. But he's very talented. I think he's a little bit more shifty, has some speed to him, a little bit more elusive. And, he's going to be running behind a pretty big line led by Blade Absmeyer and Troy Hufker. Saw both of these guys at Media Day. big guys who are just going to clear the way. They were a part of that championship team, championship line last year. And this line, they're only losing one player, I believe. So they're really experienced, and so they're going to clear the way. They're going to do their thing there. Also want to shout out Chaz Holman, who made some plays at receiver and DB at corner. And so look for the Centauri team to, make some noise this season again and potentially defend their title. They have the talent to do so, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I just gotta first off congratulate Centauri on their first ever, state championship in football. They're a team that was close for many, many years, and so I think that that's a kudos to the coaching staff and their ability to have talent, reload talent, et cetera, So, it's not that the talent isn't there, just like Simon said, and he just referenced a ton of talent that they do have, right? So these are all things to keep in mind when considering Centauri. And something that gave me a huge vote of confidence did come from Media Day when, I asked what their offense was going to look like and if it was going to look the same as it did last year. And Mr. Holman there, he said that the offense is going to look different, but I think it's going to be even better than last year and be a bit more diverse. And so I love hearing that just as a football fan and as a coach, but especially for a team that's looking to defend its crown, that it's willing to adapt.
Hey, real quick, I gotta defend my boy Chaz here because I know y'all are being a little disrespectful in the TikTok comment section. He knows what he's talking about. That's all I gotta say there. Let's see what the Centauri team does, is all I'm gonna say. But Cody, I just had to put that out there. I gotta defend my boy. He's a playmaker and whatnot. Do you want to go ahead and talk about the third team that is tied here for a second?
Yeah, so our other number 2 here is going to be the Ray Eagles. Look, last year, 9-3, just came short. But, they lost only to the teams that were in-state. They lost to Centauri in Week 1, 28-14. That put Ray on my radar. Oh, Lord, I'm going to abuse that one. But anyways, then they lost to Lyman pretty horribly in both the regular season and the postseason of scores 41-0 and 42-8. Now, they have plenty of, guys who are going to be returning. They have an all-state honorable mention linebacker in Brady Collins, who, led the team in tackles for loss with 23. He was a dog. And, there's other backfield records here. Look, Tell Wade is a Wyoming commit level. So that just shows you that the talent is there. He is a Division I football player, and he led the team in sacks with 10. And, he combines an imposing frame with incredible strength. So I think that this defense, is going to be absolutely nasty. They have Peyton Wade, who had 3 interceptions last year. And I think that these guys are ready to, try and get over that hump. That Lyman wall has been just vicious these past few years. But, they get wide receiver 1 in Chris Arambula. There's a lot of R's there, returning to the fold, who, he struggled to find Pater, and he also had a lot of drops at crucial times during the season, especially in the postseason game against Lyman. So, hopefully getting those behind you, having a short memory is going to help. And obviously, when you return your quarterback and your running back, that helps out significantly. Casey Midcap was our newcomer of the year winner last year. He's a solid quarterback. He's pretty athletic. And then, in the backfield, Caden Bauer is a very solid combination of agility and power who, not having to split as many carries could really get the ball rolling here and form a dynamic duo with Casey and him in that backfield. They just got to hold on and protect the ball significantly better against title teams, and you will see Ray potentially in that championship. But they got to get over those chip teams first.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Look, this is a team with a bunch of talent. By the way, the highlights playing right now, that's Tell Wade. That's that big boy, D1, and he's showing that, hey, just because you play 1A doesn't mean you can't go D1. I know that's something that a lot of people out there, they'd be like, oh, they're only 1A, so they're not good at football. Like, let's be honest, the Denver metro area really beyond that. A lot of areas beyond that. I'm not just gonna call them out, but that's how I see it. But they got some guys out here, they're huge up front. They got a quarterback who did a good job last year as a starting freshman. He's going to build on top of that. Also, they're returning their running back, Bauer, aren't they?
Yep.
Yep, and I believe he was a 1,000-yard rusher, which, I mean, hey, it's
790. He was close.
Oh, okay. He was well. He's probably gonna be a 1,000-yard rusher this year. So there you go. There, I got a lot of faith in this team here as well, which is why they are kind of here in this tied spot. Yeah. But without further ado, Cody,
tell us about number one.
I will talk about the number one team here. The number one team, at least here in the preseason in 1A football, in our opinions, is Buena Vista. Hey, I'm just going to be honest with you. This was a team that Cody and I both believe deserved to be here at number one. Here, let me go ahead and get some clips here for y'all to watch here. But look, extremely talented. Last year they came up a little bit short. I believe they had to play Centauri at the end here, which was just kind of tough, And look, this is a team that also played in the spring, so they were, I believe, one of the only spring teams to make it just a game short of state. I think they were the only one of the spring teams to make the deepest runs out of all the teams that played in the spring. And so, they were definitely struggling with a bit, but regardless, they were undefeated leading up into that game against Centauri, including some very exciting wins. One beating Gunnison by a ton, and then beating Meeker in overtime in an absolute thriller. Now, while they are losing some playmakers and Tucker Storms, their receiver and safety, and Seth Moss, he was their guard and linebacker, they're really only losing those guys and then about 4 of their top 11 tacklers. Other than that, they're returning a lot of the core, including a very dangerous backfield, one of the best backfields in all of 1A, in Hayden Camp and Jacob Phelps here. I mean, this duo right here ran for almost 1,800 rushing yards. So there you go. They ran for over 2,000 rushing yards, and Camp also had 930 passing yards as well. They are going to be extremely dangerous. If this pass game is clicking, there's not going to be many teams that are going to stop them. Just going to be straight up. On top of that, you have a speedster in Jacob Phelps who is super explosive. And I do want to throw out Elijah Evans, who will be a big part of this defense as well. This team has a bunch of athletes, and so that's why I have them at number one. That's why Cody put them at number one here as well. Cody, you want to talk about this team a little bit before we show all of our power rankings, I guess, before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, look, this team was really, really close to being in state last year. Obviously, that game of Centauri didn't go as planned. But, I mean, like Simon said, they were coming off a short season. They were pretty banged up and exhausted by this point. So, you're going to get a fully recharged team, right? And you're going to get a team that, has looked way more crisp in the offseason. You had a lot of youth last year, but now you get a lot of opportunities to kind of iron that stuff out and really perfect your craft and, prove your place here at number one. And they're going to have plenty of opportunities to be tested and contended for that number one crown on their schedule. So we'll see.
Yes, absolutely. So if if you, the fans, don't think they deserve to be number one, they'll show you why they are or aren't number one. So we'll all know that soon. We'll all know who lands where soon enough. But there you go there. Also, while we are here, I do want to do a quick shout out to Anthony Garcia and Mile High Prep Report. We are actually part of a bunch of media polls that Mile High Prep Report will be putting out. We are actively participating in the 1A through 3A polls, media polls. Me and Cody both have votes there, and so if you want to check that out, go for it. It's in our link tree, Mile High Prep Report. It is there. You could check out these power rankings. Like I said, we do 1, 2, 3A, but they also do 6-man and 8-man rankings as well. So just wanted to do a quick plug. Shout out to our guy Anthony Garcia, plus all the other media members that are doing this thing with us. So there you go there. But just to review, here are our preseason 1A power rankings. Like I said, a lot could change, but basically at number 10, we got Flatirons Academy. After that, it goes Banning Lewis Academy, Holyoke, Monte Vista, Strasburg, Wiggins. Then at 2, we have a 3-way tie between Ray, Centauri, and Lyman. And then at number 1, our consensus number 1 team in 1A is Buena Vista here. Cody, do you want to do some closing remarks here? Talk about your preseason rankings?
I mean,
I'll give you 2 minutes, by the way.
Okay, well, all in all, I mean, our rankings were really similar. I mean, our top 4 was the same, just a slightly different order. I personally had Lyman at number 2, then Centauri 3, Ray 4, just because I need Ray to show me something that they haven't in past years, and that's getting over the Lyman hump. I mean, I don't think since they've been in league, and you can double check on my preview, I don't think that they beat Lyman since they became a part of that same league. So, you know, they still have that chip on their shoulder. They have that monkey or that badger on their back, I guess is what you would call that. And yeah, until they get that off, then that's why they're at number 4 for me. But I mean, otherwise, I mean, I think I just had Holyoke ahead of Monte Vista. I think that was like the only difference that I really had. But all in all, I mean, look, if you're a team that's behind like the second place spot, as of right now, in my eyes, there's a gap where you have to prove yourself to really be in that top 4 conversation, even that top 3 conversation of BV, Centauri, and Lyman, or BV, Lyman, Centauri, however you want to put it. I think that those guys are pretty bar none. If you throw Ray in there, those are pretty bar none, 1 through 4. And anything beyond that still they have to prove it to me that they're beyond that. And every single one of these teams will basically have an opportunity to prove themselves against one another in some capacity this season and earn their stripes.
You want to give a rundown of what your personal rankings were? Like, just going 1 through 10 real quick?
Yeah, so I had Buena Vista 1, Lyman 2, Centauri 3, Ray 4, Wiggins 5, Strasburg 6, Holyoke 7, Monte Vista 8, Banning Lewis Academy 9, and Flatirons Academy 10.
Boom. There you go. Alrighty then. Well, I'll go ahead and give my last remarks here. Let me start the timer. But basically, here were my personal rankings. I had Buena Vista at 1, Ray 2, Centauri 3, Lyman 4, Wiggins 5, Strasburg 6, Monte Vista 7, Banning Lewis Academy 8, Holyoke 9, and Flatirons Academy 10. So there you go there. Look, this is all preseason stuff, so I'm really looking at a lot of these teams kind of just on paper for now, you know, and obviously seeing what they did last year and whatnot. And so on paper, Ray is probably one of the most talented teams out there. Buena Vista, I believe, is one of the most talented teams out there as well. You know, just a very complete team, talent on both sides of the ball, you know, and very, very good skill players. Centauri, Lyman, oh, we had them tied with Ray, huh? But with Centauri and Lyman, in my opinion, you know, both of those teams, I think they're still going to contend, but they're not as complete as they were last year. You know, other players are going to have to step up. And until I see that, that's why they're there right now. Now, they are going to have a chance to move up here. You know, I don't doubt that at all. And so just keep an eye out there. Now, I do want to talk about some of the teams that are just missed out for me. At 11, I have Meeker, Platte Canyon 12, Burlington 13, Rye 14, Cedar Ridge 15, North Fork 16. I think some people might be surprised about where North Fork is ranked. Look, I think they're a good squad and they have very good talent, but they are going to have to replace a lot. They are returning their quarterback, Hunter Marino, who I believe will be pretty talented and will be able to do his thing. But we'll see how far he could take this team, though. That's definitely a team I could see rising. Cedar Ridge. Really, all these teams I could see sneaking into the top 10 here. I mean, Meeker, they are losing one of their most electrifying running backs, but they're big up front. Platte Canyon, they got some talent. Rye, they have a great backfield. Cedar Ridge, they should have a good passing game. We'll see what happens, but those are the teams that just missed out for me, and I just need to see I just need to see them play. You know, once they start beating teams, we'll go from there. But yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you want to check out where other media members lie and, their opinions, go ahead and check out Anthony Garcia and Mile High Prep Report. If you go to the link in our bio, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I believe on Twitter as well, go to our link tree. It should be linked there, and you go to his website, you'll be able to find these power rankings. We'll be updating these every week, not only on our own podcast, but, on that website as well. As a media, we'll be updating these rankings every week, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, so without further ado, Cody, you ready to hop into 2A here?
I mean, I got to be ready to hop into 2A since I'm going to be talking about the very first team here. And, yeah, so
go for it.
Let's just go ahead and jump into it. Obviously, same stipulations apply as far as how we determine this top 10 in our scoring system based on our previews. And one of the most fun previews that I did, because I was so high on this team last year, was the Basalt Longhorns. So, last year I predicted them to be a strong team to keep on your radar as a playoff team. And they delivered with a 7-3 final record, including 2 wins in overtime and 2 wins against 3A competition before eventually losing to the 2A runner-up in Brush. So no shame in that. Their other losses were to pretty solid teams as well. And so, as far as graduating seniors go, they are graduating some serious all-state talent. I'm looking at Sam Sherry as probably the biggest loss on this team, as well as some other leading receivers. But, look, you get back Cade Schneider under center, who's, a solid decision maker there, as, he did have a pretty solid TD to INT ratio. He just got to be a little bit more accurate because, his accuracy, his completion percentage wasn't super high. But, you're going to get that guy back. You're going to get Cooper Crawford, who led the team in carries and yards and rushing scores and running back by committee. And, with the other members of the committee having graduated or moved on, I think that Cooper Crawford is actually going to improve in his game because he's just going to have more consistent carries and more consistent attempts than, the 3 receivers who rounded out the top 5 for Basalt all returned. So I'm talking 3, 4, 5. So there's still some stability in the pass game. You're getting a leading tackler in Trevin Beckman returning, as well as, 3 of the other top 11 tacklers. You're also getting second leading tackler for loss, Jamie Dolan, returning, who's going to add even more tackles to his original 72 total. So, this season, I don't think it'll be any easier. There's a huge spotlight on Cade Schneider to perform as they face, some tougher, 3A teams who also improve dramatically with interesting schemes. But, I think that overall they should carry and deliver a 7-2 record with, a window of wins between 5 to 8. And they should get past the first round this year, but it's all going to be up to Cade Schneider if he takes the step forward that he should.
Right on time. Hey, by the way, Basalt, you should post film, because if you notice, this is all film against you, and I can't find film from last year. And I know there's a bunch of talented players over there, so there you go.
Yes.
There. Yeah, I don't know why they don't, because they obviously were at one point. But anyways, yeah, hey, Basalt, they're a very talented team. They definitely have the chance to move up here, but they got beat some teams. Cody, they lost in the first round of the playoffs last year, right?
Yes, to Brush, who,
they went to state.
What, like I said, was a good team, but,
sure.
They just didn't show up in some games that mattered throughout the season. So I think that that's why they're at the back end of 10 here, because, I think that they're a playoff team, but they haven't really shown, the ability to beat some of the other top teams that we'll be talking about.
For sure, but they'll have plenty of chances to prove themselves this year. So yeah, but don't let me stop you. Keep it going, Cody. I know you have these next couple ones.
We're gonna talk about the Mean Moose here out of Alamosa. Down where Adams State, is usually the big thing you hear, the great sand dunes. But there's a great Mean Moose team here, and they are headlined by the KJ squared combo that I'm going to be talking about, that has Casey Jones as well as Cade Jones. Look, Casey, he's a solid quarterback. He has great arm strength. He can make all the throws. He just gets a little too greedy sometimes. So if he can get some more decisions in there. But Cade Jones, this guy's a special receiver. He's a very special receiver. He's able to just moss people constantly. His catch radius is gigantic. His arm width is huge, and he has absurd verticality. So, when you have a receiver like that, you're able to get away with some throws, and I think that is going to continue this year. They're going to account for a ton of touchdowns. Then, on the defensive side of the ball, they do have, an incoming junior in Brant Jackson, who is 6'4", 190 pounds, and was third on the squad in tackles. And he was also able to bat passes with that massive frame. He's kind of, built to be that modern defensive end that's just really tall and lengthy, able to get his hands up there. But, you also get Cody Lopez, who was second on the team in tackles for loss, and, Abram Bowden, who also recorded 4 sacks in only 7 games. So, with an interesting start to their schedule, they have some 3A competition. They have a 1A game. I think that they're going to start off nice and 1-1. They're going to be tested by TCA very early. I think that's going to show us, how much of a competitor that they might be. But all in all, I think that they're going to take care of business in their league games and, should be in that 5-7 wow. And I think that they could match their 6-win regular season win from last year. But the defense has to show more against contenders, and the quarterback has to play a lot smarter before I would go as far as to call them a heavyweight in 2A. As far as that goes. And then the offensive line has got to also provide a cleaner pocket for their QB this upcoming season and some better run lanes to be a bit more balanced on O.
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah.
Right at 2 again.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely agreed. They have a great duo here. Like you said, Cody, Casey Jones, he's a very good quarterback. I think he's a quarterback that could win you a couple playoff games and whatnot. But we got to see a little bit more. They got to win more games than they have in previous years. I feel like they're a little bit too talented not to. So, there you go. I mean, that's really all I have to say about that.
All right. And we're going to keep it rolling here. And I'm going to talk about our next team. Boy, don't worry. Simon has a pretty good run of teams throughout this episode as well. So you'll get to hear Coach V's voice plenty. But anyways,
hey, Cody. Oh my gosh. Cody. Here, I'm sorry about that to all our listeners and viewers. I know he's kind of breaking up quite a bit there, so we'll see if we could go ahead and stabilize that connection. Oh my gosh. Oof. Okay. Well, that happened. Let me go ahead. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Go ahead and give us a quick minute here. We'll figure this out. And Cody will come back with the next thing here. Let me start voice call. See if we could get Cody back here. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you broke up pretty badly, I'm not gonna lie.
All right, well, you definitely restart my timer.
Well, yeah, I'm just gonna say, just start from the beginning and whatnot. It was a tough go.
I'm going to. Oh boy. It was bound to happen with the luck we've been having today. But anyways,
Go ahead.
Here at our next spot is Moffat County, the Bulldogs. I mean, last year, historic season for them. Most wins that they've had since their 9-win season in 2004, back when they were in 3A, and they did so behind an incredible defense and an even more incredible run game. Now, they do lose their starting quarterback, Ryan Peck, and they also lose some solid players on defense like Ethan Hafey and Carson Miller. But, all but three players also graduated who caught a pass, but I don't think a lot of that matters because, Ethan has a younger brother, Ian Hafey, who, as a sophomore was second in sacks and also collected 8.5 tackles for loss. I think that he's going to fill the void that Ethan left and maybe even be better than Ethan was. So you're going to have that, part of the defense that could take a huge step forward. And, I don't think that there are any question marks around class of 23 cornerback, Court Murphy, who recorded 5 picks last year. And if he can make some plays with those picks, that is, all-state potential right there. And then in addition, you have, some class of 24 athletes in Caleb Squires, who could be, the Justin Tuck to Ian's JPP, having collected 7.5 tackles for loss in 2 less games. So, you have a pass rush, you have a secondary on defense, and then you also have the biggest returner almost out of most playmakers in the entire state in Evan Atkin. He ran for 29 touchdowns last year, which I think led the state in touchdowns per game, and maybe all of Colorado in rushing scores. He was at least up there, and he also led this team in receiving. And so, I think that whoever steps in at quarterback for Moffat County, they're obviously going to have a way easier time with Evan in the backfield, and, he's going to contribute to a handful of wins. But they are losing, I would say, at least a steady quarterback. So looking ahead to their window of wins, I think that, anything below 7-2 is inexcusable for the talent that they're returning. But if their quarterback can get into a rhythm, this is a team that is very dangerous, or, at least against some of the competition that they have. This is a team that I think could go 9-0. Look out for them in the regular season, and depending on the balance that they achieve on offense, look out for them in the postseason.
Boom. There you go there. Absolutely agreed. I think Evan Atkin, he's definitely another, maybe not another, but he's definitely in the running for MVP again. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he carried this team. He is a very talented running back and athlete in general, as you can see from the highlights that have been playing. So, there you go.
Time for a very long Simon turn.
Yes, and I'm okay with that. I've been ready. So let's go ahead and keep this thing going here. Don't want to kill the vibe. At number 7, we got Platte Valley here. Start the timer. So last year, went 6-3, lost in the first round to Severance, which was interesting. They lost to Severance 35-7, but this was a team they only lost to 17-14 earlier on in the season. So we know what they could do and whatnot, what they've been able to do here. Oh my gosh, I'm just juggling this stuff. But, going into this year, they are losing a couple players. Mainly, they're losing a lot of their skill players on offense, a lot of the receivers, they're starting running back, they're losing a lineman, but they're only losing 6 of their top 11 tacklers. So they're returning a pretty good core that was really productive, led by guys like Brody White, Nicholas Burgers, Josh Eagleton. Brody White and Josh Eagleton, by the way, at linebacker, played as sophomores on varsity last year and were super productive. Eagleton had 79 tackles, also was a sack leader with 6. And then you had Brody White, who I believe was one of the tackle leaders. He racked up 97 tackles and 3 sacks. And so that linebacking core is going to be strong. You also have now a senior lineman in Nicholas Burgers, who's going to go ahead and turn up for this team as well. Excuse me there. But I think the guy that really kind of holds this team together is their quarterback, will be a junior quarterback, Howdy Johnson. Last year had a pretty solid year, threw for 879 yards, 11 touchdowns, 6 picks, also rushed for 375 yards and 2 touchdowns here. I think he's really talented. I like the timing he throws with, the accuracy. He's pretty mobile as well, and so he's going to be able to, bring back some consistency for this offense. And so I think the biggest question for Platte Valley is, how well does this offense do without their skill players? We know they're returning their defense and their quarterback, but we'll see how much they'll be able to accomplish this season with the guys they got there. So boom.
Well done, Simon. And I mean, look, Platte Valley, they're a very consistent program. You basically know what you're going to get out of them. You're going to get a playoff appearance. But like Simon said, how much further can they go with a rotation of skill players this season? But I mean, you're returning the most important position on the field, and something defense wins championships. So that's not a bad foundation to be building off of heading into this season.
Nope, not at all. And like I said, I'm really interested to see how Howdy Johnson does this year. He could really turn it up for this team. But moving on, though, at number 5/6, we have a tie here at 5. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk about La Junta here first. Let me go ahead and get this stuff set up. So, look, last year, little bit of a learning season. I mean, they went 5-4 in the regular season, then lost to Res in the playoffs, which that was a very good Resurrection Christian team, but had a pretty solid year. Definitely a lot of learning, though. They're not losing too many seniors here. They are losing a running back. He wasn't their starter. He was a backup. And then they're losing a lineman. But other than that, only losing 4 of their top 11 tacklers. They're returning the majority of this defense that should be more experienced, led by the likes of Andrew Razzo here, who will be a senior this year. This is his film that is playing, and so he's going to be leading a pretty experienced La Junta team. But the thing that is really going to, I guess, carry this team into the playoffs and potentially into state is this backfield led by Luke Garner and Jeremiah Martinez. This duo was lethal last year. Luke Garner, as a sophomore, threw for 689 yards, 6 touchdowns to 5 picks. Could clean it up a little bit. I think he will. But he did rush for 771 yards and 12 touchdowns. I think he's going to become a better passer this year while maintaining a lot of that athleticism and rushing ability. But then you got Jeremiah Martinez. As a junior, he ran for 785 yards and 14 touchdowns. Also caught 10 receptions for 174 yards and a touchdown. He is going to be one of the stars in this backfield. In my opinion, he's one of the best running backs in the entire state, Jeremiah Martinez. Just look at some of his plays. I mean, he's super explosive and all that. And so I'm really looking at Garner and Martinez to kind of carry some of the weight of this offense here. Even though, like I said, they are losing some receivers, I think those two guys are going to do enough on offense and gash a lot of defenses while their experienced defense goes to work and hopefully improves this year. So there you go. That is La Junta.
I mean, right there, you just have, important players returning to important positions once again. And that's just a good example of, I mean, this was a playoff team last year, obviously. And, one that's just looking to, I mean, look, the team that they lost to is now in 3A, right? So I think that's a huge testament to the talent that they lost to last year and the talent that they're capable of, competing with or against somewhat. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Severance arguably had one of the top defenses in 2A last year. And so, like I said, going to this year, I'm really looking at Garner and Martinez to tear it up for this team. And then this defense, I mean, they're going to be experienced. And so there's really no reason why they should be worse than last year. They should at least take a step forward. So there you go there. But moving on, the other team that we have tied at 5th with La Junta is the Academy out of Westminster. Let me go ahead and get the film pulled up here. Boom, boom. So last year had a pretty productive season. I mean, look, the academy I don't think it's really known for football like that. And so for them to do what they did last year was a pretty big deal. They went 5-4, just barely missed the playoffs. I mean, they had some tough losses at the end against Res and Severance that kind of, they kind of hurt them. Those were their league games there. And they played in a very, very difficult league. I mean, it was tough. You have Eaton University. It's the Patriot League. And so going into this year, the Patriot League, they are losing some members like Res and Severance. So that should probably help them out. But also, this is going to be an older academy team here. They're going to be more experienced here. They are losing some guys, but they're really only losing 3 of their top 11 tacklers. They're losing the 3rd leading rusher and 3rd leading receiver. That's pretty much it. Other than that, this is who they're returning. They're returning Isaiah Elliott. He was an Offensive Playmaker of the Year candidate for us. Very talented dual threat. Passed for 1,519 yards, 16 touchdowns, 7 picks. Also rushed for 591 yards and 10 touchdowns. This is his film right here. He's going to be the engine and the heart of this team, and he's going to bring them, he's going to score a lot of points for them and get them into a lot of winning positions here this season. But they're also returning Jay Donahue. He was their 2nd leading rusher next to Elliott, who was their leading rusher, and so he's going to be returning. They return their lead receiver, Sean Smith. They return Derek Real, I want to say. He was their 2nd leading receiver, and so you're returning the majority of your receiving core. And on top of that, you have Corbin Miller. As a junior, he had 93 tackles, 24 tackles for loss. This year, he should be one of the top linebackers in the state, and so I'm looking at this academy team. They're returning a lot of their skill players, their star quarterback, a great linebacker. They should be dangerous this season, but I think it's going to be more of a matter of seeing who they could beat. They got to beat some of these top tier teams. We know that they can beat teams that they're obviously better than, but they got to start punching up here, in my opinion. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree that, look, the academy has one of the best offenses in 2A football, period. Even looking back to last year, they had one of the best offenses, one of the most dynamic offenses. They're returning a lot of those pieces there. And, their league is a lot easier this year. They still have to deal with Eaton, but you get the benefit of playing a Fort Lufton, you get the benefit of playing a Berthoud, you get the benefit of playing, a Faith Christian team that lost a lot of players, and Steamboat Springs that was an okay 3A team coming down to 2A. So I think that they're going to be way more competitive in the league, and that could be all the difference in them just simply making the playoffs. And, 2 of the teams that were in the league last year, in Res Christian and Severance, were the 2 and 6 seeds in the playoffs. Those guys being out of the way does make it easier. And as well as all your youth taking a step forward, I think that this is definitely a playoff team and one of the higher rated teams, so to speak.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, they were very young last season. They learned some lessons going into this season. It's their turn to deal with some punishment, so we'll see what happens. So there you go. But keeping this thing going here, let's go ahead and move on to number 4 here. And we got Florence. Last year, they were a 1A team, I believe. Now they are moving up to 2A. And don't get it twisted, even though they are a 1A team moving up to 2A, they are extremely talented. They got a lot of players out here. So I'm not going to talk too much about how last year went. They only lost 2 games. Lost to Buena Vista in a close one, 2014. And then in the playoffs, lost to Ray 36-7. But it's a new year. And, they are losing some guys. Like I said, Logan Bottier, he moved to lineman, so he's out of there. He was a very talented linebacker for them as a sophomore. Also, I believe he ran the ball for them, so that's going to be tough. They're also losing one of their lead rushers in Jacob Kennedy. They're losing John Aguilar, who's another lead rusher. And so they're losing their 2 running backs, but they are returning a good amount of their defense. Only lost 5 of their top 11 tacklers, and they're returning most of their offensive line. I believe they only lost 1 starter. And so this team's going to be dangerous, led by Levi Paxton, one of the best quarterbacks in the state, one of the best dual threats. Last year, threw for 870 yards, 19 touchdowns while rushing for 263 yards and 7 touchdowns. You know, he's going to have to play like a top quarterback in the state for this team to not only contend, but potentially go to state and win state. I think this team has that potential, and they have a very talented quarterback in Levi Paxton who can do that. But we'll see if he could take that step forward. Then you also have Lincoln Nix. He was the backup for them. Very big contributor at linebacker with 115 tackles, but he's definitely one of those guys who will be a great two-way player. You have Xavier Martinez, Lukey's Ness, I want to say. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong. And then you have Josiah Cornwell, 6'4", 215-pound athlete who's a beast at tight end, defensive end. He's going to be able to put in some work and cause a lot of damage for a lot of teams. Now, really the only thing for Florence here, I just got to see how they fare against 2A talent. I think for sure they're making the playoffs, but how far they go depends on some of the stars they have on this team. They got to lead, you know, straight up. They got to lead.
Yeah, and, you know, when I look at this Florence team, this is a team that's been talented every year. I've done film breakdowns of some of their best over the past, you know, couple of years. I'm even thinking all the way back to Owen Busetti, but, you know, they have next-level talent. They've been able to do great in the regular season. Postseason, they've underperformed. So it'll be interesting to see how they stack up against 2A talent. Like Simon said, I think that talent-wise, they can compete. But what is going on heading into the postseason that causes such a struggle? I don't know. But, you know, that is my biggest question, is if they can get over that hump.
For sure, and that's why I said you got to lead, you know. They have been underperforming, and so they're going to play 2A now, and I think they really do have a chance to shock some teams and make a run here. So there you go there. But Cody, do you want to take over from here for at least a segment?
Yeah, I mean, look, from this, or at this next spot, it's the number 3 spot for our PMC rankings, is Delta. This was a 2A team last year, and this was a quarterfinal team with only a quarterback, with only a freshman under center. I'm talking about Ty Reed. That's the biggest storyline here. And, you know, the newcomer of the year for us last year, he scored 27 touchdowns through the air and the ground. And, you know, he has a playoff win under his belt. I mean, in the very first round, they really put it to Alamosa like 45-10 or 13 or 14, something like that. They put up mad points. And, you know, I think that was heavily highlighted with Ty Reed's performance. And, you know, he's getting a lot of pass catchers back. I mean, Asai Carrillo, Damian Gallegos, Gavin Brew, Connor Workman. You know, these guys caught 665 of the 1,000 pass yards from last season. So you're getting a ton of guys coming back there. And then I'm also looking at Easton Byer, who is just a game wrecker on the defensive side of the ball. He had 6 of the team's 15 sacks. And, you know, overall, the team is returning a majority of their sacks. This is something that I look at. Can they have a pass rush? Do they have a run defense? And I think they're going to get all of that. And they also return a ton of interceptions. You know, Gavin Brewer, he's somebody who was able to get interceptions last year. He was tied for second in picks with 3, along with class of 24, Ryland Bynum. So, you know, they have talent just oozing all over the place. I just think that this was a very young team last year. And, you know, that can be said with how many sophomore and freshman starters they have. But all those guys are going to be juniors or sophomores this year. And then you have plenty of returning seniors, especially up front in the trenches, to, you know, create lanes and also create a pocket for this quarterback that I think is going to take a huge step forward. You know, they have a very interesting schedule. It actually starts with a week 1 rematch against, you know, University, who eliminated them in the postseason. And I think that, you know, winning that game could create a ton of momentum heading into the rest of this season. I could see them, you know, winning 4 games with a great record in the league. And, you know, my only question is kind of Bayfield in the league. But even then, I think that, you know, those are winnable games. They face the Academy. They face University out of league. And, you know, even with concerns, I think that they, you know, go 500 in some of their tougher games. And all in all, end up winning like 7 games this season. And, you know, with the youth that they have, being one of the best teams in 2A. Sorry, I went a little over time, but it's been a while since I talked, so I really had to get my points in there. I wanted to take my time. Give Simon a chance to breathe.
No, you're all good. But yeah, no, completely agreed. Interesting to see it will be interesting to see how they replace Horn here. He was a big contributor for them. But Ty Reed, I mean, one of the most talented quarterbacks who played as a freshman last year, not just on this level, but on any level here in Colorado. And so we'll see how far he could lead this team. But Delta, I mean, this is just one of those programs that usually do a good job at replacing players and whatnot. And, I mean, they got some guys returning as well. So there you go. But, I believe
back to you, Simon.
It is my turn, yes, again, at least for these next two here. So let's keep it going here. Don't want to kill any vibes, but we got TCA, the Classical Academy, at number 2 here. Let me go ahead and pull up some film. All right, so last year, undefeated. Until they went to the playoffs and lost to Severance in a huge upset where they lost 37-21. And so this is a team that is going to be losing quite a bit of players. Obviously, you had Cade Palmer, one of the only players on this level to go D1 last year. He's over at Air Force. He takes 23 touchdowns away with him, plus 61 tackles. You're losing your quarterback, Sam, 3-year varsity starter. So there you go. You're losing Matt Segovia. Great, just a great producer on offense and whatnot, and on defense. But here's the bright side for TCA. They're only losing 3 of their top 11 tacklers and really should have one of the top defenses in the entire state here. I just realized most of this film was out of frame. My bad about that. But they will have one of the top defenses in the entire state, led by Josh Snyder. This linebacker will be a senior, but last year at 105 tackles and 8.5 tackles for loss, he will be a defensive leader and one of the captains for this team. So there you go. They're very good against the run. They also have a very talented edge rusher here in Blake Van Tongren. This 6'3", 205 defensive end was a force for them last year, racking up 43 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 10 hurries, looking to, produce more, convert some of those hurries into sacks, which we'll definitely see. And then offensively, I mean, obviously they're losing Cade Palmer, who they relied on a ton, but they return Ethan Aragundi, who is not quite the same player as Cade Palmer, but he's a little bit shiftier. Look at that comparison between Mason Clonch and Devin Brady. I think there's a lot of similarities there. Plus, he's a great linebacker, had 6.5 sacks. And so look, this TCA team, they're going to play great defense against you. They're big up front, and then they have a very talented running back who's going to carry for them. He's an absolute star. They play Eaton to start the season, and honestly, I believe that is really their only threat this regular season. Other than that, they should go undefeated, but we'll see if things change going into the playoffs, because that is the bigger story here.
Yeah, they're another one of those teams that just hasn't gotten it done in the postseason. I mean, I think that their best chance was that, championship game in spring against Rifle. Maybe they just ran out of gas, playing that spring and fall season. But I mean, historically, they are a team that has fallen short just a bit. I think it's going to take a little bit more creativity and a little bit more daring to push it further into the postseason for a chance to win the state.
Yeah. No, absolutely. For now, they are ranked here. Like I said, it's on paper. On paper, they look great. They're huge. They got linebackers. They have edge rushers. They have athletes everywhere, on defense, and they have experience too. And then you have a guy in Ethan Aragundi who got a lot of carries last year too, so it's not like he's a scrub. He's going to be a bona fide star, probably over 1,000 rushing yards and over 10 to 15 touchdowns. Over that, in my opinion. And so we'll see what happens, but, they got more to prove than anything. Now, if they beat the team that is number 1 here, then they could really shake things up. And speaking of number 1, we have Eaton, your 2-time defending state champions.
No surprises here.
No surprises. Last year, extremely dominant. Like I said, they were one of 2 teams in the state last year who went undefeated. As in, they didn't lose in the regular season. They didn't lose in the playoffs. It has been almost 2 years since they have lost a game. Just keep that in mind. The last time I want to say was maybe during the pandemic in 2020. And so, look, this is a team that they might not be as strong defensively as they were last year, but don't get it twisted. They're still returning a stud in Morgan Trebet. By the way, committed to Nevada. Congrats, bud. You deserve it. I've been talking about Morgan Trebet. I've been saying he's one of the best athletes, not only in 2A, but in the entire state. He's been breaking records as a freshman. He's going to do it this year, and he has a lot to prove this year. For him, this is a revenge tour. even though they won state, this is definitely a revenge tour. He was hurt a lot last year, and obviously he was afforded the ability to sit out games, and he still kind of struggled there. This year, he's healthy, and you should be scared of this guy here because he is an elite pass rusher. So there you go there. On top of that, you have a stud in Gunnar Clary. He was more of a speed rusher last year. Didn't play the entire playoffs because he was hurt. Going into this year, he's been tearing up the off-season camps. He's been on a lot of colleges' radars, a lot of scouts' radars, a lot of media's radars. He's going to turn up. And so this defense is still going to be good. But offensively, they're going to have a lot of strengths here, led by Walker Martin, committed to Arkansas for baseball, but last year was one of the best quarterbacks, throwing for 19 touchdowns, rushing for 9. You also have his favorite target, Zach Grable. He had 10 touchdowns last year. He's returning. You have Tate Smith at tight end, big old guy. He's returning. You have Ryder True, who contributed on the ground. He's going to be an excellent linebacker, but also an excellent runner. He's going to be returning. This Eaton team is stacked. They're returning basically their entire offense, and they're going to have some guys on defense that are going to get after you. Until they lose, they are number 1. That's just where I'm at. So there you go there. Cody, what you guys say about Eaton here?
Agree out of 10. Go with Eaton until they prove you wrong. And, they didn't give us any chances to doubt them this year. I mean, they showed some grit in that championship game where they were down. It was an unfamiliar sight. But, I mean, whatever any team threw at them, they were able to throw it right back. So, I mean, Eaton, riding with them. I am interested to see how Ethan Flores's production does get replaced, since he was such a dynamic playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. Not that I doubt that they can, but Ethan was a special player, and that is just one element that won't be back in the fold this season.
Absolutely. Well, it'll be replaced by Ryder True and Morgan Trebet. Morgan Trebet, like I said, he was hurt last year, and so he was held out when they can, and so that included offense. He didn't play his normal running back role last year. This year, like I said, revenge year. He's back, and he's looking to take on a lot of those carries along with Ryder True to form a very powerful, just power running game. So there you go there. I mean, that's Eden. We'll see what happens, but I mean, someone has to beat him eventually. They're going to lose eventually, and even if they do lose in the regular season, I mean, we'll see what happens in the playoffs, right? So there you go. But let's go ahead and recap our 2A preseason power rankings. At number 10 here, we have Basalt. After that, it goes Alamosa, Moffat County, Platte Valley. At 5, we're tied with the Academy and La Junta. Then at 4, we have Florence, Delta, TCA, and Eaton. Cody, do you want to go ahead and do your closing remarks here / talk about your power rankings?
Yeah, I'll talk about mine first, so that way I can put in the chat 1A and 2A PMC power rankings while you're explaining your reaction. But I mean, look, we were pretty similar here. I mean, Basalt and Alamosa, those my big pushes here. They were right where I ranked them at 10 and 9, respectively. I did have Moffat County personally ahead of Platte Valley. So, I mean, overall, mine was Eaton, Delta at 2, just because, they've showed me a lot. TCA 3, Florence 4, the Academy at number 5 because of that offense, La Junta 6, Moffat 7, Platte Valley 8, Alamosa 9, 10 Basalt. Look, it's still Eaton and then everyone else right now, in my opinion. But I do think that Delta personally for me, just with what they were able to do, even with the youth kind of working against them last year, I'm still looking to them to, contribute and compete this year. And, they were competitive against one of the best 2A teams last year. I think, some teams that some people may be questioning is like, oh, where's the university? And, they are still a very talented team. They're just on the outside looking in with all the talent that they graduated last year. They easily could pop back into this top 10 with some solid wins to start the year. But, I think they have a few more question marks than answers, maybe, than some of these other teams here, right? So I think that those are the big takeaways. Look, I have the Academy ahead of La Junta personally, just because of everything that they were able to accomplish on offense last year, even though, at the end of the season, La Junta was in the playoffs and the Academy was not. I think that their offensive upside and their strength of schedule is something to consider when looking back at their season. And then Moffat County, personally, I know that they're ranked number 7 on here. I had them ranked at number 7. This is a team that could quietly sneak up into the top 5, but they're going to have to be way more balanced.
Well, there you go. All right, let me go ahead and talk about my stuff here real quick here. So my preseason rankings, personally, it went Basalt at 10, Moffat County 9, Alamosa 8, Platte Valley 7, the Academy 6, La Junta 5, Delta at 4, Florence at 3, TCA at 2, Eaton at 1. I'm not as high on Delta. I know they have Ty Reed, but they are returning, or they are losing some guys, and so I just want to see how they replace them. But we'll see there. Florence, I feel like they got a lot of talent. That's why I put them over Delta. Same with TCA. I feel like they're a very complete team, returning a lot of guys, and obviously Eaton as well. Now some teams that did just missed out was Devlin here. They're at 11 for me. I mean, we got to see the quarterback Bushlack, I want to say Austin. He threw a lot this season, and this off season, so we got to see him develop and whatnot. So hopefully he's gotten better. I know they like to throw it out there, and so if this passing game for them is very good and cleaned up, then they could definitely move up into the top 10. Plus they have Fiadanu. University, they just finished outside at 12. They're playing Logan Getting at quarterback. We'll see how that goes. Some questions there. Defense, they got some linebackers, but we'll see. For me, they got to win more games to make it up there. At 13, I got Brush. I know they made it to state last year. They're pretty solid, They got a Ty Griffith out there. They have Kale Stegner. They'll be able to win some games, and so they could potentially move up. And then I got Manitou Springs and Lamar and Elizabeth here to round out the end here. Like I said, a lot could change this season. I mean, for me at this point, teams just got to start winning. And until then, I mean, as of right now, it really kind of doesn't matter because I got Eaton at number 1. And until they are beat, we'll have to see. And even then, they're not just going to go away like that. This is a team that is looking to three-peat. They're looking to cement themselves in Colorado history. So we will see. But
absolutely.
Yeah. But Cody, well, I mean, I guess we don't really have any more time. I mean, you ready to move on to 3A here?
It is going to be a 3A moment for sure here.
Okay.
And, I think I open us up. So I'm just going to talk about it, and then I'll keep filling in the blanks here in a moment. But,
okay.
To kick us off here in 3A, here at our, quote number 9, but really our number 10 spot is Frederick here. They did change their name to the Eagles this year as a part of that, hey, let's stop being cringe movement. Because, just don't name your team certain things. But anyways, Frederick here, they had a very successful season last year. 9-1 in the regular season, only losing to Holy Family in overtime. Really putting it to Meade, who is a state runner-up, really put it to them to end their season, get a high seed, put it to Pueblo County, and their season ended against the eventual state champions in Fort Morgan in a very close 21-14 game. Now, they do get a couple of things going for them. You might be freaked out. Oh, no, they lost their coach. Their coach isn't there anymore. Well, they do get Ralston Valley's former head coach, who is a wing tee enthusiast himself. That's exactly what Frederick's all about. I'm pretty sure that was the number one thing for them heading into this hiring process is consistency and stability. And so, I think that that's something that they're going to get again this year. And while they do lose a very talented back in Parker Ayers, as well as some very solid talent, Trevor McLean is somebody who is getting it done for them in the trenches. Alex Austin was somebody who was able to make some catches. You're also getting, other big contributors in the trenches. But I mean, look, in a wing tee, you don't have to be the best blocker. Okay. Your missed block can get hidden in other people's blocks as well as by the other tailbacks that are going to be blocking, or it can be hidden in the misdirection. And they do have 2 very solid tailbacks returning in Cruz Zamudio, who eclipsed 1,000 yards last season. And then also their 3rd string running back, River Lakey. He averaged 10 yards per carry. And also had 6 touchdowns himself. So there's plenty of experience in the backfield. They also have their leading receiver, who's going to end up being, the security blanket for rollouts this upcoming year. I don't really think losing your quarterback matters all that much when you're a team like Frederick, honestly, who's just a bit of a game manager, and you're going to try and win games the exact same way. So I'm not too concerned about turnover at the quarterback position. And then, they do also return a lineman in Hunter Kenny, who and Cooper Anderson, who are both All-State honorable mentions, right? So they still do have talent coming back this year. They're still going to run the ball. They're still going to be Frederick. They're just probably not going to win state.
Well, I don't want to count Frederick out just yet here. I mean, they did a pretty good job here. I mean, they came close to beating the eventual state champs last year. We'll see. I mean, they have a very similar scheme. Might even do that scheme a little bit better than they had last year. Like, they might be able to perform better, with this coach coaching them in this scheme. And so, because he is a talented, he's a coach that's won a lot of games, is what I should say. So, there you go. We'll see what happens there. I mean, they got a lot of talent. With these teams that love to run the ball and play good defense, you really never know. You just got to play them best you could. And, on any given day, we'll see what happens. So, there you go.
Yeah. But I think that brings the next team to you, right, Simon?
Yes, it does. Really excited to talk about this team here. At number 9, we have Severance, the Silver Knights. So last year, obviously played 2A, but they had one of the most dominant defenses that I've ever seen. And it's because of one of these guys, Dom Butts here, whose film I'm going to be playing. But, they just had so much talent. Obviously, they lost the brush, just short of state. But, this is a team that is still pretty young, a program that's still pretty young. I believe they're only in their 3rd or 4th year here. I think this is their 4th year here. And they found a lot of success. They've made the playoffs. They've made deep runs in 2A. In 3A, they're going to be able to make some noise. And I think a lot of that is going to be because of this defense. You have Don Butts here. This 6'5", 235-pound edge rusher is going to be a beast. Last year, he led 2A in sacks. And was one of the, he was a sack leader in the entire state. He had 14.5 sacks, and he's going to be tough to block there. They're also returning Colby Runner. He was a lead tackler as a junior at linebacker. 124 tackles, 21 tackles for losses, 7.5 sacks himself. You also have Parker Gazdick. He played linebacker, corner. He had 66 tackles, and 7 interceptions, which did lead the team there, I believe. So there you go there. He's going to be a big part of this team, especially since they are losing a stud in Caden Donovan at safety. You also have, you have a Brady Varney as well. As a sophomore last year, he was a beast. He had 13 tackles for losses and 9.5 sacks. By the way, he's 6'5", 220 pounds, and so the 2 edge rushers for this team are both over 6'4", 220 pounds. You don't see that on many levels. Cherry Creek might have that on the 5A level. They have this on the 3A level, and they're this good. They're extremely well coached. And then look out for the brother duo of Jeremiah Hoffman and Jaden Hoffman. Jeremiah Hoffman has been turning it up for TFG. He's one of the best young receivers coming up. Jaden Hoffman, he's going to turn up as a quarterback. This is a Severance team that's going to rely on their defense. They're going to be extremely strong, tough to block, and then they're going to have, some guys here on offense are going to do their thing. And plus, I believe they like to spread it out too, so they could cause some mismatch problems. Apologize for going over there, but there is a lot to talk about with this Severance team. That honestly, they're really only here because they got to prove themselves on the 3A level, right, Cody?
Yeah, and like you said, they have the size to do it. I think that one of the biggest things, or one of my biggest takeaways from Media Day is as you move through classifications, it's more of a question of depth, right? So if somebody goes down, who's up next kind of thing. But I think that Severance has the right coaching and the right next man up kind of mentality that is going to lead to success on the 3A level.
Absolutely agreed. They got to win games, though. So, we will see.
Yeah, and, we'll see on them. But maybe they could be, a program like this one that I'm about to talk about. Talking about Holy Family, one of the most consistent programs probably in all of Colorado football. Constantly flirting with the postseason and, producing studs on both sides of the ball. Granted, they are losing quite a bit this year. They do lose 6 of the 7 receivers who caught a touchdown and over 100 yards, including one of our top-rated tight ends, Dom Mazzulla, who not only was just a fantastic playmaker, but just an overall spark for this team. They're also losing Jacob Laver, who's one of the best playmakers in state last year, and is a next level guy. 7 of their top 11 tacklers are graduating, including the top 4 in Brady Samaras, Alex Austin, who led the team in tackles for loss. We did a film breakdown on him. He also led in sacks with 11, Jared Delgado and Dominic Neely. And they also lose a second-team All-State lineman in John Holquest, right? So how can we still have them up here? Well, the returning playmakers are pretty sweet too. And it starts with Rylan Cooney, who was a very solid quarterback last year. In his sophomore year, he just got better and better each week. The gaps in talent against other teams closed. And I think that, just like most football stories, it starts and ends with the quarterback. And Rylan took some significant strides last year that has me, very confident in this team. They also had another class of 2024 guy in Anderson Osborne, who showed flashes with 2 sacks in 5 games and another 4 tackles for loss. And, they do have a non-senior who is in the top 5 in tackles in Jace Gunderson. So, I think they're going to probably lose a few more games this year. I think there's still a question of how they compete against the heavyweights. But I do think that with the talent that they have at quarterback and, with just what they are as a program as far as replacing talent, that they definitely could be, in that 5-3 range. And, if the ball takes a couple of good bounces, or at least this is when they had an 8-game season scheduled, they could have gone 7-1. So, project that out over a full season. You have a window of wins of basically like 5 to 7 or 8.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, Holy Family is just one of those teams that have always been pretty good, pretty solid. And, with this young quarterback in Rylan Cooney, I think they could really turn it up and win a lot more games. I mean, they're going to be a more experienced team. I think last year they were, they were a little bit green at some areas. Now, real quick though, shout out to Jacob Laver and Alex Austin. Met those 2 homies over the summer. Wish them the best of luck. Saw them off to college, so they're going to do their thing there. And they will be missed. But, this Holy Family team, they got a lot of good players. I think at this point, we just got to see how they fill the roles of some of the seniors that really stepped up last year with this young team. So, yeah, there you go. Right, Cody? Is that fair to say at least?
Yeah, I think that they had a good balance of experience in green, but they're going to be less green this year than they were last year.
For sure. Absolutely. So there you go there.
And, a team that I think enters the season, they didn't end their season ideally, but they're going to enter it red hot, I think, with all the off-season lifting that I've seen some of these guys do, as well as, just what they were able to do last year is Palisade. I mean, look, they challenged themselves. They played some 4A talent. They played against the spring defending champion Rifle. And, they had some big wins against some very solid teams. And they were able to score like crazy. And, they do lose some talent for sure on this squad. I think mainly on the defensive side of the ball. I'm looking at Kevin Sorgren, who's going to Wyoming. He was a D1 guy. And, you also have Aaron Harris, who is an all-state caliber player on the offensive side of the ball, and Franklin Barks, right? So all these guys, they're very solid, but they're returning the majority of their playmaking from last year. You look at Malachi Espinosa, you look at Rhett Ward, those guys, and, Phelan Salvati, all their big rushers from last year return, and they are huge. They have been up some insane weight for their size and frame. I think they're going to be even more aggressive this year. This team was running all over the gridiron last year, and I think that's something to expect again this year. Look, Rhett Ward, he was a great linebacker, averaging 11.3 tackles per game, but he was also responsible for 836 yards and, 8 touchdowns on the offensive side. Phelan Salvati, look, he's a guy who cracked 1,000 yards, double-digit touchdowns. He ripped off a long run of 76 yards. So they got the size, they got the strength, they got the power, they got the cardio. They have some offensive linemen who are returning. They're not losing everybody. And then Malachi Espinosa, who was a multiple playmaker of the week kind of guy, eclipsed the 100-yard mark. He broke 1,000 yards rushing. He ran for 20 touchdowns. And, look, if he can take a step forward passing and they can just have a little bit more of a dimension, that's okay. But, I mean, all in all, this is a team that is just going to run over a bunch of people. But the reason that they're this far back in power rankings is they just have a really tough schedule this year compared to last year. And I think a lot of teams took a step forward. But until they lose those games, they're going to remain in my top 10.
Also, I just realized.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, my bad. I was muted. On the stream, so I'm just gonna say this real quick here. Cody heard everything I said. How are you muted on the stream? Because I'm messing around with the settings. I'm the producer of this stream right now, so I kind of got a lot going on. But I just wanted to say, look, got a lot of backs they're returning. They're gonna have a dangerous rushing attack. You know, they have a couple 1,000-yard rushers. They'll probably go rush over 2,000 yards as a team, probably approach that 3,000-yard mark here. So we'll see what happens, but I think my biggest question is just saying, can this defense improve despite losing a very talented linebacker in Kevin Sorgren? We'll see. You know, we'll see. But this is just one of those teams that could be really dangerous. Wouldn't be surprised if they made a brush-like run to state. So just going to throw that out there. So there you go.
Yeah. You get a very interesting three-team run here, Simon, with a couple of Cody interjections in between. So I hope you're ready.
Yes, I'm as ready as I'll ever be. So let's just keep it going here. At number 5, we have another tie here. I feel like we have a lot of ties here in the middle, at least so far. But we got Durango at 13. Look, they won state last year, 2 years ago now. Felt like it was just last year, though. And they had some guys, despite losing, you know, some key players like Jordan Wolverton, Ben Finnesseth. This last year, they were pretty good. Went 8-2 in the regular season, 9-3 in general. Played some pretty tough teams here, including Montrose, who was the 1 seed in 4A, Farmington, and then, you know, they did lose to Meade, who did go to state. And so lost to some good teams, but this was a very talented team that kind of just suffered with some injuries. Now they're losing a lot of size, a lot of skill players. Nate Messier, he was their second leading rusher. That's going to be a pretty tough loss here. They're losing Jordan Stanley, who is a pretty versatile athlete. Linebacker Cole Matava. They're losing linemen and Walter Stauffer and Will Knight, who are going to be big losses up front for them, both on offense and defense. Then they're losing Chase Robertson, who was their starting receiver, but also have 3 picks. Altogether, they're actually losing 7 of their top 11 tacklers. And so, look, it's not looking great on defense, but on offense, they're returning some guys here, including probably one of the best linemen in the entire state, best interior lineman, at least as of right now, in my opinion, Joshua Bates. He's committed to Oklahoma. Check out the interview if you haven't yet. He is a nasty player. His highlights are playing right now. He's going to anchor down a very young line, and so I have a lot of faith in him to figure it out, get it done, not only as a player, but as a teacher as well. But then you have a backfield with Zachary Haber, who had 1,358 rushing yards, 19 touchdowns last year, also caught for 300 yards. And you have Tyler Harms, who started last year at quarterback. You know, this is a duo that could really turn up and produce a lot of them. I also want to shout out Jarek Baruch, I want to say, who will probably be a second back for them, and AJ Folk, who is 6'2", 215, who could be a very dangerous edge rusher for Durango. Look, placing a lot, but their offense should be good, and that should be enough for them to win a lot of games. Bigger question, though, is how good will this defense be, since they are a little inexperienced, a little green here. You know, we'll see how well they do if they could also carry their weight. So yeah.
What's the point of the timer if you go over every time, Coach V? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm overheating here, but sorry.
I'm just joshing with you. Look, Durango, look, those losses that you stated, they aren't only big in impact and experience, they are literally big. Like, Stoffer was a giant out there, okay, on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Size has got to be one of the hardest things to replace. And while they still do have some size, they are just losing, good depth for sure. This Durango team was one that struggled with injuries for patches of the season last year and even heading into the end of the season. So, depth does matter in that regard as far as health goes. And so, I think that is my biggest question, is how healthy are they going to be this year? Because I think when healthy and everything's clicking, they're right there as far as the state contender goes. And, I even think last year losing to Meade showed in how close of a fashion they did in the postseason shows that they are still, a contender for sure. But, there's definitely some question marks on defense. But, I think that their skill players can have them keep their spot in the top 10 throughout this season. I think that's a good opinion to have for Durango. But
for sure.
Simon, back to you.
But yeah, no, for sure, definitely agreed. I mean, they do have some holes they got to fill. We'll see how they do it. I mean, they have a great coach over there in Todd K. Smear, so I'm sure they could figure it out. Still got a good core too. So there you go. But moving on to the other team that is tied at 5 is Lutheran, actually. And on my personal rankings, I had them ranked a lot higher than 5. We'll talk about that later, though. Let me go ahead and start this timer and get the film pulled up. But last year, I mean, went undefeated all the way until the playoffs, where unfortunately they came up just short here. I mean, they lost to, I believe they lost to Fort Morgan, who eventually won state, so it's not a bad loss, but it was a very uncharacteristic loss. They never really played that sloppy before, and so it was just kind of an off day. And so they are graduating some guys like Clayton Jacobs, Doran Pacheco, Bryce Johnson, Ari Jacobs, all guys who are playing on the next level, or who should be playing on the next level because they are that talented. So they're losing some core guys there. Dorian Pacheco, by the way, playing both ways. They're also losing Brody Donahue, Cole Ryrick, Ryan Allen. Even though it sounds like a lot, they're only losing 6 of their top 11 tacklers on defense, which isn't a lot. And then on offense, I mean, this is who they're returning. They're returning Ryan Kenny. His highlights are playing now. He is a very explosive guy. As a rotational back, he ran for 750 yards and 11 touchdowns while also playing linebacker and racking up 76 tackles. I mean, just look at the film. Bro is an electrifying running back. He's going to be able to carry for this team as they figure out their passing game. Now, speaking of their passing game, they do have Jaden Williams, who I believe is going to be one of the top tight ends in the state. Did really well playing for the Ducks 7v17 this last year, so I think he's going to turn up. You also have the CCO brothers, Trey and Joe, both made our watch list. I think they're very shifty guys as well. That will complement Jaden Williams really well. And then the guy who's going to replace Clayton Jacobs is Ryken Doggard, and he looks really good in offseason stuff so far. We'll see if he will continue to develop here. Also want to shout out the linebacking core, including Peyton Garrett for this team. They're going to be dangerous. Lutheran loves to use their linebackers, and so even though they are losing a lot, I mean, they're going to be fast, at linebacker, and then they have a very nice core here who could turn up for them and could put up similar numbers. Maybe not the same, but similar numbers, so we'll see about that. Plus, they're very well coached. Man, I keep going over. I'm trying really hard not to, but I'm just lacking just a little bit.
You gotta be like an auctioneer. We're testing Simon's communicative skills today. But this Lutheran team, very solid football team. I believe in their program. I think they're going to be really good this year. Like Simon said, lots of skill position. And Simon, what was are they trying to run a play every 12 seconds? 10 seconds? Something like that?
It's under 10 seconds. Under 10 seconds.
Okay, so under 10 seconds, they want to get a play off. I think that they are coached to do that, and I think that, they have some offensive talent that, is going to make that very possible. But, they end up tied for this 5th spot just because I am a little concerned. Well, not concerned, but I just have to see the quarterback pads in action before I personally warrant a higher rating, which I think is fair.
Gonna throw this out there. Ryken isn't exactly the same rusher as Clayton Jacobs is, but I mean, I'm just going to say, as a passer, a lot of good things out here. So we'll see. I mean, look, I think this offense is going to be explosive. They run that spread, and they do it just as good as any team in the state while having a good rushing game. Because I think there are some teams that run the spread, but they have a horrible rushing game. Lutheran has always had a pretty good rushing game, though. So we will see. They got a lot to prove, and I'm hoping to make it out to a game. So there you go. But, yeah, I mean, let's keep this thing going, though. I believe.
All right, for real, 2 minutes on one of the teams that returns the most talent in the entire state. Good luck, Coach V.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. But at number 4, we have Green Mountain. We can go ahead and start the time and get the film here. They are returning basically everybody. They're literally losing only 2 seniors on their entire roster, which was a big deal. You know, because this was a team that only lost to Fort Morgan in the playoffs 14-0. Now, they did go 6-4, had a really up and down season, including, you know, times where they would blow out a team like a 4A team or beat them, and then they'd lose barely to like a Pueblo South 23-21, get blown out by Holy Family 28-6, and then they went on a little bit of a run here at the end. But this is going to be a very talented group that challenged the state champs from last year, and so they got guys here, and so I'm going to keep it pretty. Oh, here, I just realized the film isn't playing. Gosh dang it. But I'm going to keep it pretty simple here. I mean, the film that you are seeing right now is Donnie Carney. The 6'5", 225-pound tight end did get offered by Northern Colorado, so he is that guy. He also plays defensive end and outside linebacker. He's going to be part of a stout defense that's going to give a lot of teams trouble. You know, I think this was a pretty young team last year. They showed flashes of greatness. This year, they're going to take a pretty significant step forward, and Carney's going to be part of that. Another guy who's going to be part of that is Anthony DeGrazia. I believe he was an all-state honorable mention. I mean, he did his thing at cornerback, had 44 tackles, 4 picks as a junior. He's going to be returning for this team. And then something that's going to be real notable is the rushing game for this squad. They're returning Dom Sanchez, Noel Dakers, I want to say, and Zach Wallace as well, who had some rushing. I mean, this backfield, they were really productive last year. They like to run the ball a lot, and then they'll throw it every now and then, but they like to run the ball and play good defense. This is going to be a dangerous team because of how much they're returning. They have a ton of experience. They played together for a while. We'll see what happens. But yeah, and it's not like they can't throw it either. Like I said, they have a big old tight end who obviously, as you can see here, they throw to plenty.
Yeah, I mean, I was sold on this team when you talked about just like the stability that they have returning at everywhere on the field, honestly, but especially in that backfield. You know, it's really easy to kind of transition when you have proven guys in the backfield and proven guys up front, you know, because then you can rely on your offense to get 5 yards every play, eat up some time on the clock, and that makes everyone's job easier, much less that you have as many players returning as you do. So I feel the Green Mountain vibes.
There you go there. Yep, absolutely. I think they'll be dangerous. They could definitely make a run here. I mean, really all these teams in the top 10 could really make a run.
3A is competitive.
Yeah.
3A is probably the closest level of competition, 1 through 10 here. And I'd even say that there's an 11th and 12th team that, might have a chance as well. But
absolutely. We'll talk about that later, though.
Yeah, we will. But for now, we're going to talk about one of my favorites to win state, and that is going to be Northridge. I mean, this was a team that exceeded our projected wins by 1, which got them so hyped. But, last year, they were very solid, and, they competed against, some heavyweights, and, they lost some very close games against Fort Morgan and Meade by a combined -4 margin. And I think that that's a great call sign that they're going to be great this year. They're going to be returning their quarterback under center Cooper Rose, who, he threw twice as many scores as he did picks. So that's a good start. But then they also have lead running backs, Isaac Ness and Damon West, return following a season in which they ran for a combined 19 touchdowns and over 1,700 yards. So tons of production in the backfield. But what good is the running backs if the line isn't returning? Well, don't worry. They have some solid linemen returning. You're getting Parker Steckel back, who is also very good on the defensive side of the ball as a linebacker. You're getting Cody Burkholder, who is an all-state honorable mention at center. You're getting Dylan Suji. You're getting Chris Thill back. You're getting a lot of very solid linemen back, as well as some receivers. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
I realize you can't see me, but yeah, I could hear you. You're good.
You can hear me? Does it sound fine?
Yeah, it sounds fine. Keep going.
Okay, I get a little bit of an extension. But anyways, they're also returning some very solid receivers. I mean, you're getting Reed Peterson and Marquez, who are all, the top 3 receivers there. So you're getting basically your entire offense back outside of 2 linemen and maybe some guys who had some rushing yards. That's fantastic. You're also getting, Steckel on the defensive side of the ball had 119 tackles. Over half of them were solo at 61. And, he was just a game wrecker. And I think that he's somebody who's not only going to be in contention for our top 5, senior linebacker list, but he's a potential defensive playmaker of the year candidate over there in the middle for Northridge. Then in addition to that, Damon West and Jaden Marquez were guys who led the team in interceptions with 2. They're both going to be coming back. And, I think that's something that you can't count on as much for Northridge this year is that they did recover a ton of fumbles. They recovered 12 fumbles last year, which is kind of unheard of. So I think that those are going to take a dip. So they're going to have to find ways to force turnovers in other ways, as well as force other teams to punt. But I mean, just very talented on both sides of the ball. They are losing, a couple of turnovers and a couple tackles here and there. But ultimately, I think that with the progression that they showed last year, as well as the returning talent that they have coming back into the fold, they are in that discussion as far as teams that, should make it past the first round of the playoffs and should be in that semifinal round, arguably.
Yes. Hey, real quick, shout out my boy Chris. Shout out my boy Coach Garza over at Northridge and whatnot, my dogs. Had to. Look, this Northridge team, they got a lot of talent. And I've been saying it, like even in my prediction last year, I said this is a team that could contend for state this year. And I just want y'all to think about this. When was the last time a Greeley team not only went to state, but won it? This is a team that could definitely win it, The experience they have up front, they're going to be good. They're well coached. They have a lot of chemistry together, so they'll be great. The skill players are good. You're returning a quarterback in Cooper Rose, who had experience last year. He should be able to step up. You're returning an all-state linebacker in Parker Steckel as well. This is a team that is pretty complete. I'm not even going to lie. Now, they're going to get challenged this season. We're going to get a better vibe on this team once we see them play. And I will actually be at the Evergreen versus Northridge game. I should be going to that game for sure. So there you go. Just wanted to throw that out there. Really excited to see how this Northridge team does. So yeah.
Good spot for transition, Simon.
Oh, it's an excellent spot for a transition. Because at number 2, well, technically tied for number 1, which is the only tie we have at number 1, is Evergreen. Let me go ahead and start the clock here and get the film here. Look, Evergreen last year made the playoffs. This was a team that we thought maybe might have had a little bit of a rebuilding year because they are losing. They lost their guy, Griffin Loretano, plus a lot of skill players. But they found a guy in Tommy Pacholski, and look, I'm just going to be honest, they're not losing a whole ton. They're losing 5 of their top 11 tacklers, a lot of their secondary. Other than that, they're returning basically everybody. But like I said, let me start with Tommy Pacholski here. As a first-year starter, was pretty impressive. Passed for 1,961 yards, 21 touchdowns, 5 picks. Also had 4 touchdowns on the ground. He will be losing his top 2 receivers, and so they might not have as much experience there, but I'm sure he's going to help them figure it out. He's the leader of this team. He's the quarterback, so I'm not super worried. They are returning their leading rusher in Gabe Zimmerer. He had 784 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, also caught for 228 yards and 2 touchdowns, and racked up 44 tackles. He should be able to, relieve some of the stress they might have there, with the lack of pass catchers. I mean, he'll be returning. He'll be a safety blanket. Plus, he provides a run game. And speaking of this run game, they got some big boys, including Russ Woodward, who is going to be one of the best offensive tackles in the entire state, period. He's also a beast at defensive end. 6'6", 240 pounds, hit a massive growth spurt. He had a solid junior year, 70 tackles, 4.5 sacks. This year, he's going to be an absolute monster. Already earned a D1 scholarship for Eastern Washington, I believe, to play tackle, so he is that guy. You also have Jordan Turnbull. I think he's somebody they could probably include a little bit more in the passing game. He's 6'4", 210. He's a very good athlete there, and so he could be a mismatch. Plus, he's coming off the edge as well, and so he is going to be part of one of the most deadly pass rushing duos. Also got to shout out Jack Johnson at linebacker, had 114 tackles. This Evergreen team, they are very complete. They got pass rushers, they have a linebacker, they have a running back, they have a quarterback. At this point, they just got to win games, I think. They just got to win games and really prove themselves here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I watched Tommy Boholski's film, broke it down. I addressed some things that he has to get done, but ultimately, we got to see what these other pass catchers have because, historically, things that held back Griffin Loritano was pass catchers and drops. Things, even looking at Tommy Boholski's film that I think held him back last year, was drops. So we just got to see that get bridged, and we got to see the gap get bridged against some other contenders. Against other contenders last year, they had a pretty tough season. They had some, internal things going on that definitely affected it. But I think against other contenders, it could get a little rough at times. So we'll just see how they do this year against that competition and see how they stack up. But look, quarterback and pass rush, a formula that simple has won championships before. So not to mention everything else that you have in tow for the Cougars, that could be a pretty good season.
They got a running back too. So
yeah.
There you go. Yeah, we'll definitely see. I feel like they just haven't quite got over that hump. I think this might be their year, though. So, like I said, I'll be at that Northridge Evergreen game. But, Cody, do you want to talk about the other team tied for first? This isn't the only time you've had two different teams at number one, at least here in 3A. So, there you go. Well, the only other time has been in 3A last year. But go ahead, Cody.
Well, if you know me, you probably saw this coming from a mile away. I'm going to talk about the Roosevelt Rough Riders. Look, every year, they graduated a ton of talent. I'm not even going to say that they didn't. Brock Saya was a phenom as a one-year starter last year, only throwing 3 picks to 32 touchdowns. He was dangerous. They lose Keaton Kaiser. They lose Cooper Walton, who's going to Montana. He was a top 5 linebacker. They lose Clayton Robinson, and Jaden Casanueva. Oh my Lord, I'm stumbling over that for literally no reason. But they're losing 2 guys who were in the backfield plenty last year. Jaden was especially good as a pass rusher and also had plenty of tackles for loss. So they're losing some serious talent on defense. They're also losing their leading pass defender in Jaden Botterell, who had 5 interceptions. He had 162 INT return yards. 11 of their total 18 interceptions are graduating. And, in the trenches, they do lose first-team All-State lineman Alex Areola, who is integral in plowing open lanes and keeping the quarterback upright. So why in the heck do we have them tied for number 1? And why do I personally have them at number 1? Well, because they have plenty of talent coming back. Look, class of 2024, Bronco Harrison, Hartson, I don't know why I said Harrison, Bronco Hartson, younger brother of Brick Hartson, by the way, was absurdly efficient last year in his limited action, going 12 of 16 for 221 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Look, he's had plenty of years to learn, which at the quarterback position is just so important and vital. So he knows his offense probably inside and out from his older brother, from sitting behind Brock last year. I think that he's going to deliver. He's got good size. He's very athletic, versatile, and tough. Look, he's played defensive line. So when you got a hard-nosed quarterback look like that, and there's a first down that needs to be got, and he takes off, there's probably very few defenders in this entire state that are going to make that tackle. Not to mention leading rusher Ryan Duche is going to return. Not to mention our 3A most valuable playmaker, Tucker Peterson, who's one of the best playmakers in the entire state on any level, any classification. You have him coming back to the offense and defensive side of the ball. You have guys returning to the line. I'm looking primarily at first team, all-state guys like Anthony Munoz, not to be confused with the legend, but could be Roosevelt's equivalent to legend, I guess. And I just think that the team that I heralded last year is just returning a ton of talent on offense. You know, last year I was high on how much they're returning on defense. I think that they're returning enough on offense to be a contender. And I think that this season could be another 10-0 season for them in the regular season with a window of wins between 9 and 10. It's just, can they get that monkey off their back in the postseason?
Agreed. Hey, Tucker Peterson, our only receiver MVP ever. Because we've only done awards 1 year, and he was the only one to win it as a receiver. So that's huge.
I don't even know if it'll happen again, honestly.
Might happen this year. But he'll be in the running for sure. You know, but hey, look, this Roosevelt team, I mean, we'll talk about our personal rankings here in a minute. I didn't have them at number 1, but I had them pretty dang close. You know, I need to see how Bronco Hartson does in some of these younger guys, but they're returning a pretty good core here. You know, and I think something that Ryan Doucet said, is it Doucet? Doucet? I apologize if I'm saying that wrong.
Doucet, but
okay. Well, something he said at Media Day was that, you know, last year they had a lot of talk. This year they want to be about it. You know, and I think this is a team that could definitely be about it. This is a team that could definitely go to state. They could definitely win state, and I wouldn't be surprised. You know, there's a reason we keep picking them. I mean, they're very well coached. Shout out to Coach Lane Wassinger. Wassinger, I want to say, right? Got to meet the guy at Media Day. Real nice guy, cool guy, fantastic coach. You know, coaches a great team out there, and so we'll see what happens with Roosevelt here. But regardless, you could probably count on them being a top 5 team this entire year. I don't even think that's that crazy of a thing to say. They are the definition of a powerhouse here on 3A, by the way. I think I actually had them beating a 4A or 5A team in Highlands Ranch. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, let's keep this thing going here. Let's go ahead and look at the overall rankings we have, because why not? But
you can talk yours real quick and how it was different.
Okay, sounds good. Well, just real quick, just to recap our 3A preseason power rankings. At number 10, we have Frederick. After that, it goes Severance, Holy Family, Palisade. At 5, we have a tie with Lutheran and Durango right there. Then we have Green Mountain. At 15, Northridge after that. And then we have a tie at number 1 with Roosevelt and Evergreen there. Here, let me go ahead and start the clock here. My personal rankings went Frederick at 10, Holy Family at 9, Severance, Palisade, Durango, Northridge at 5, Roosevelt at 4, Lutheran at 3, Green Mountain at 2, and Evergreen at 1. I'm just going to be real. All 10 of these teams could probably go to state and win it. And I would not be surprised. Look, 3A is extremely tough. You cannot just be one-sided. You cannot just have a good offense. You know, you got to have some defensive playmakers. You cannot just have a good defense. You have to have at least a couple running backs, not just 1 or 2 if you're going to run it, but you got to have a stable, you know. And so to win the 3A state championship, it's all about who is going to be the most complete team, straight up. You know, and real quick, I want to talk about some other teams that are just outside that I wouldn't be surprised if they made the top 10 and maybe even made a run, you know. But for me, at 11, I have Pueblo South. Then you have George Washington at 12. They have a fantastic duo of Marcellus Honeycutt Jr. and Silas Evans, both D1 guys. Have the offers for it, so there you go. At 13, you had Meade, who was literally in state last year. They have a stud in Sean Mentlock. Plus, they're huge up front as usual. You know, nothing really changes there. You know, they got some guys. So, there you go. They're just not as complete as they were last year, obviously. At 14, you have the newcomers in Rez. I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. Now, I have questions about what they're going to do on offense. We'll see about that. Defensively, I think they'll be tough. At 15, I have Discovery Canyon. They have a great quarterback and running back duo in Trevin Alacio and Ethan Emmons. We'll see if the defense can pick it up. They looked pretty weak against me last year. And at 16, I have Fort Morgan. Got a lot of new guys in there, and I think, you know, they'll be able to make some noise. I just don't know quite yet. there's a lot of proving that has to be done here in 3A, just going to be honest with you. This is probably the toughest rankings that not only I've had to do, but Cody, I'm sure you've probably had to do. Anthony Garcia has told me he's really struggled with this as well. By the way, check out Mile High Prep Report. We'll have media power rankings that we do with other guys there, and so this is really tough. But Cody, go ahead. Sorry, I went a little bit over there to plug something and talk. But yeah,
I should get 2.5 minutes on every single one of mine.
Go for it.
Anyways, for my top 10, I'm just going to run through it real quick. Roosevelt, number 1, Northridge, number 2, Durango, number 3, Evergreen, 4, Green Mountain, 5, Lutheran, 6. I think especially with these top 6 teams, it's pretty interchangeable, honestly. So, I'm not too pressed, and it averaged out, I think, pretty respectively here. Then Simon and I were on the same page, at least with back 4 teams, as far as Palisade, Holy Family, Frederick, and Severance. That was my order. His order was a little different. But I think that teams to talk about outside the top 10, look, Meade, really tough up front. I think that, they're a team that might take it personally. And I took that personally. Being outside the top 10, there's somebody that can swing their way right back into your George Washington's another good one. Pueblo South's another good one. But one that, I think could even go as far as taking Palisade's spot on this list, depending on how they perform this year. And one that I don't think I've thrown enough respect on here is Summit. Summit is returning a very solid quarterback in Jack Shearholtz, I believe is how you say it. They have an absolute beast on their defensive line. And overall, they're returning a lot of skill players here. And I think that they have a schedule where they're going to get chances to prove themselves. They got a game against Durango on the road. They get to play Palisade, and they get to play Glenwood Springs is another team in 3A that I think could make some noise both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Not any of those teams really in any particular order, but, those are all teams that just have great athletes and the ability to make big plays. And I think that they were teams that were like maybe a player or two away from making the postseason last year, especially Glenwood and Summit. And, I think that they have the experience to flip the script and make that push this year potentially and, squeeze some of these teams from last year out. But like I said, Roosevelt, number 1 for me for the time being, Northridge 2, Durango 3, Evergreen, Green Mountain for my top 5. Lutheran easily could be in the top 5. You could swap them out. I think 6 through 3, honestly. And then Palisade, Holy Family, Frederick, and Severance. That's 3A.
Valid. Yeah, no, that's 3A. Like I said, it's going to be a bloodbath. There's going to be a lot of moving up and down. A lot of teams will get shots at each other. We'll see what happens. I'd be really surprised if this top 10 stays the same. I'm almost positive a couple teams will drop out and go in. Just going to be honest. Like I said, you have to be a complete team. You have to play a complete game to be successful on the 3A level. Having a bad game means you lose, straight up. There's no team that's that much better than the other that'll make the playoffs. So, there you go. But, golly, 3A. I'm super excited. I can't even lie. I'm excited for this season. But 3A just kind of gets your blood pumping a different way. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. 3A is just competitive.
It is.
But, there's going to be some competition on this 4A level as well. And, Simon, if you don't mind, I'd like to start off because otherwise I'm going to do 3 teams in a row. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, you could do it, I guess.
Okay, cool. So we have 2 teams here at the number 10 spot, and I'm going to be talking about Skyline, one of the more intriguing teams last year. And, they made it to the playoffs last year despite, a lot of injuries, a lot of emotional turmoil in the community, and just a lot of new faces in a lot of ways. They do see some pretty large linemen leaving on the defensive side of the ball. I'm looking at Caleb Allen, who is 6'4", 320 pounds. I'm looking at Tony Munez, who is 210 pounds. So losing some size here. They're losing a great athlete in Wynn Drews, who was a 1,000-yard rusher. But, they do have plenty of opportunities to turn up this year. I think that they do return their top 2 tacklers in Maddox Leggett and Evan King. Evan King is a phenomenal safety, by the way. You got to take a look at his film. He's very athletic. He can cover the entire field. But, I think that for this Skyline team, something that is going to put them in the conversation is their offense, right? You see a guy like Caden Box who was solid last year, missed some time due to some injury, also is a little hot and cold, but I think is able to iron out a lot of his timing things with the 7-on-7 work that he did this year. And he also has a great pass catcher in Logan Miller, who is just a great offensive weapon last year. I mean, caught for 620 yards, ran for 470. He threw for 420 yards. So there's nothing that Logan Miller can't do, which just opens up your offensive playbook so much as far as things that you could do with the talent that you have there. They also do have, some guys who saw some action. I'm looking at Emilio Gutierrez, who saw some action at center as a sophomore. He needs to take some steps forward. So, this is a line that has like splotches of experience from last year. And, if they put in the work this offseason, like everyone else does, and just with like time and chemistry, I think that they can really mesh together heading into this season and provide Skyline with a very solid season.
Dang, right on time. There we go. Hey, absolutely agreed. I absolutely love this duo of Caden Box and Logan Miller. They're going to produce a lot, and Caden Box, he's come a long way. I mean, obviously he was hurt last year, so you could take that film with a grain of salt, which you're watching right now, which is still pretty good. But, he has improved a lot this offseason, made the team full gorilla team, and he's performed very well. I've really only heard good things from his coaches, from people around him, from people who watch him, and so I'm really excited for him for this year, along with this guy Logan Miller and the rest of this team. Now, they have some filling out to do on this team for sure, but if you want to see good football, a good duo, look at Box to Miller, and that's it. And we'll be going to that game not tomorrow, but in 2 days on Thursday when they play another team that will be on this list. We'll talk about that a little bit later though, but they got a duo of their own, and that'll be extremely exciting.
And arguably the strongest arm in the state, arguably.
Yes, no, for sure. I really have no doubt about it. I think him and another quarterback whose team is on this list are like right there. So there you go. But let's keep this thing going. Like we said, we was tied at 10 here. So the other team here at 10 is Montrose. Let me go ahead and talk about them real quick here. Pull up the film too. So last year, I feel like was a little bit of an unexpected season. Maybe not, well, obviously not for them. But, they went undefeated. They were the number 1 seed in 4A, and they played a lot of tough teams here before losing an extremely close game to Erie. It was a comeback win for Erie for them, and just barely not making the playoffs. This team is losing quite a bit. They're losing over 2,000 rushing yards between Ethan Hartman, Austin Griffin, Gabe Miller. I guess that's it. But between those three guys, you had 2,000 rushing yards because Hartman had 1,138, Griffin had 987, then Miller had 438. And this is a team that loves to run the ball. They pound the ball, and then they beat you up on defense by playing excellent defense. And so those are all big losses there in the backfield. As if that was not enough, they're also losing 7 of their top 11 tacklers as well, including a 6'5 pass rusher, Ashton Oberg. And that's going to be a really big loss for a team that, like I said, loves to run the ball and play very good defense. And so that's kind of why they're here tied at 10 here. I think, they kind of got to earn their way back, and they do got some guys here. They have Gage Wareham, started at quarterback last year as a sophomore, had a solid year, threw 4,069 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks. He needs to take a step forward for them to move up in these rankings here, to be honest with you. And then they're returning a running back in Blake Griffin, not the basketball player, but the running back, obviously. He had 598 yards, 12 touchdowns. He's going to be the main guy. They're going to lean on him, so we'll see there. And then they got a big guy in Demarion Lopez. He was a big-time contributor on defense. And Torrey Eckerman, who will be the other guy returning on defense. So altogether, we'll see if they could recapture the magic from last year. But they do got to replace a lot. So we will see.
Not too bad that time.
It was okay.
I mean, it's hard to really it's kind of hard to knock down the number one seed from last year, especially a team that was arguably just one play away from making state. And, honestly, look, I'm trying to say this in the most respectful way possible, but thank goodness, because I don't think I could have watched a championship game where there was like literally 90 running plays. But, I mean, look, what they do well. And, for that reason, and, in wing tee situations, you're able to kind of replace production in a variety of ways. So that's why they're still here at 10.
People still got to step up and perform, though.
Yeah, they still have to. That's why they're not back in the top 3 here. They still have plenty of talent to replace that needs to be shown. But
yes.
A team that is returning a ton of talent. I mean, graduating some serious talent, but also returning a ton of talent is Windsor, the Wizards. I still chuckle at that. I have all the fun team names, and I love that. But anyways, I think that I'm calling this backfield TNT, right? Because you have Jaden and Chase Thomas, so you got Thomas and Thomas here. They had a combined 1,500 yards and 9 scores last season. And, Jaden, he's a very explosive running back, and Chase is a very scat-like footwork guy that this backfield will just be an absolute handful to handle for a lot of defenses. And, I think that whenever you look at running backs in earlier years and they tend to fumble, that is a number that does tend to go down as the years improve. So I think that Chase is going to turn the ball over less, and that's going to make him more dangerous in addition to Jaden. And, while not the leading passer, they do return Sauer, who saw plenty of snaps last season, and he ended the season with a positive TD to INT ratio and tacked on another 2 rushing scores to put himself in prime spot to be under center. Look, he's got a great frame at 6'3", 215 pounds. If that's running at you, it's probably going to fall forward. And, he's smart decision-making. And, for teams like Windsor that are going to have a very stellar defense, they're going to have a solid rush game. They have lots of guys returning on the line. Like, holy cow, their line is just going to be insane this year. Then the quarterback just has to be a game manager. I mean, 4 of their 5 linemen return. They have plenty of depth. Like, they're just huge everywhere. And last year, they had Jordan Manrique, who was playing some varsity snaps. He was a tackle at 255 pounds. And, his footwork and leverage could take a step forward, but he could be a 4-year starter at offensive line, which is very rare, just in general. So I think that that'll be really awesome. Colton Piper, Robert Taylor, these guys are going to be back. There is a sophomore who contributed. So lots of sophomore and junior talent here that's going to be returning, not to mention just being senior heavy in the trenches where I think it matters most. I think Windsor is somebody that can surprise a lot of teams and really be a headache for quite a few teams this year after having a lot of interesting matchups last season and just some bad bounces as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed. I mean, we know this Windsor program has always been a very good program, a staple. Even last year, as they had some struggles. They
Simon, I can't hear you.
Oh, well, sorry. The stream could hear me. I forgot to unmute me with you, but the stream could hear me. But yeah, like I was saying, last year, I mean, even though they're a team that had their struggles, they're a growing team, and they're still well respected. And I think this could be what Montrose was last year and whatnot. So we'll see, I mean, they do a good job running the ball, producing on offense, controlling the pace of the game, which is a really big part of how they win games. And I think they could do that even better this year. So we will see what happens.
And they can grind your bones to dust running the football, as opposed to this next team that, while they can run the football, boy, can they air it out. And, returning to be one of the most balanced attacks in all of Colorado football are going to be the Denver South Ravens. Look, last year they played very solid, avenged their opening season loss against Mesa Ridge with a playoff win before running into the buzzsaw that was the Montrose defense. But I think that, they don't lose much this year. They're returning basically everyone. Out of everyone who recorded any form of a tackle, only 5 graduated. Which means that this Ravens defense will be the stuff of opponent's nightmare. They returned 88% of their total tackles, and this includes a handful of sophomores, namely headlined by linebacker Gage Kramer, who is 5th on this squad with 44 tackles. but then you're also going to have incoming seniors that are going to just wipe the floor with other people. I'm looking at defensive tackle Jamari Smith. I'm looking at OJ Thomas. I'm looking at Sharif Boyland. I'm also looking at Jonah Burke, whose speed coming downhill cannot be easily countered, even by great linemen. And, he can move with running backs very well laterally. So this front seven is going to be dangerous. They have tons of athletes, in the defensive secondary. They're going to be able to make plays. Look, Demaje Wells, he paced all Ravens with 3 interceptions and is a part of the majority of interceptions that are returning. And look, defense is a huge thing that I look at as far as a team that's coming back, because look, on offense, you can score as many points as you want. If your defense is a sieve, that doesn't help you out. But I think this defense is going to be one of the top units in 4A, if not of all Colorado football, with as much talent as they're returning. That's only going to get bigger and stronger, especially with their ability to get to the quarterback and force fumbles. But on the offensive side of the ball, there's no questions for me. Joseph Capra is one of the best quarterbacks in the state. He had an incredible season last year, throwing over 30 touchdowns and very few interceptions. He has one of the best receiving threats in Rashad Roadrunner Caldwell, who, has multiple D1 offers, D1 speed, 20 yards per reception, 15 touchdowns, and also a class of 24 tailback in Chevelle Early, who eclipsed 1,000 yards last year. And this trio had 77 combined touchdowns last year through throwing, catching, and running. There's some overlap, but overall, that is a dangerous offense and defense. I know that I'm starting to run over on time a little bit, but oh my God, Denver South is going to be good this year.
Yeah, don't even trip. I am so excited to see Denver South versus Skyline. High-key, I would love a shootout. I know their defensive coordinators would hate that, but I would love a shootout. Just see Capra go up against Box, Caldwell against Miller. I'm really excited. I didn't get to see Caldwell or Capra live last year, so I'm super excited to see them do their thing this year, and I think they're going to be electrifying. They are must-watch football. I mean, hey, Denver South right here at 8, I mean, they could potentially make a run here. You never know. You definitely never know. Shout out to my boy Crush over here, part of the city of Colorado Springs, who I work with, but he used to be a ref, and he reffed Denver South back when I believe Philip Lindsay was back on this team, or I believe, right? Philip Lindsay went to Denver South, I want to say. So, and they made a run. They lost in state, but they made a run. So we'll have to see if this current iteration could make some noise. You never know. But they'll be really fun to watch regardless. That's fair to say, right?
Sure enough. I mean, okay. I was a little bit higher on them than 8, so.
No, for sure. We'll get into that as we get near the end and talk about our personal preseason rankings at the end here of this segment. But let's keep this thing going, though. And I got Fruita Monument here at number 7. Last year, I feel like Montrose, they had a very interesting season. They surprised a lot of teams. I don't know how many teams looked at Fruita Monument and was like, they might be a threat, but they were. They went 7-3, 1-1 in playoffs, lost to Erie 50-26. Jesus, but they were on a roll. By the way, only lost to Montrose 26-22, and that was the 1 seed, and then only lost to Chatfield, who won state 28-7. So this was definitely a team with a lot of talent. Now they are losing some guys. They're losing about 1,500 rushing yards total between these 3 guys and Armani Trujillo, Cole Jones, they're only losing over 1,000 yards between those 2 guys, but they are losing Peyton Nessler, who is their second lead receiver, and they're losing Jens Tobiasen, who was a big old lineman for them. And then altogether, only losing 6 of their top 11 tacklers, returning the rest, though. And this core is really good. As you could see on this film, they got a pretty good quarterback who I feel like is such a sleeper. Like, nobody really knows how talented this kid is, but he is that guy. In Corbin Rowell last year, threw for 1,140 yards, 10 touchdowns to 7 picks. That could be cleaned up, but also rushed for 9 touchdowns. I think this year he could definitely take a step forward and be a very dangerous duo threat who you have to respect. Just looking at some of the throws he can make here, he is extremely accurate with great timing. Then you got Wyatt Sharp. As a sophomore, ran for 987 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's returning. This is a team that loves to run the ball. Those are returning Case and Stegelmeyer. He was a second rusher with 882 yards and 7 touchdowns. Look, this Fruita Monument team, they are returning a very good core on offense. They're going to be able to score a lot of points and control the pace of this game. Look out for Fruita Monument. I think they could really make some noise this season.
No, absolutely. I think, first off, it's just very interesting seeing a team that's able to throw the ball so well out of split back and I form, and even single back situations. You know, they're a bit old school in that sense, but I think that obviously that makes their play action game very good. And they're a team that can run the ball very well too. So, you know, it's just interesting to see that kind of dynamic working so well. And, you know, I think that it's going to carry over into this season. And they just have so many threats. I mean, oh my, like what? Just look at the film. Just look at the film.
For sure. Oh, yeah. They're basically returning 2 1,000-yard rushers with 2 guys who got close to that. And then, I just have a lot of faith in this quarterback. Like, I think you can't discredit him if you're a defensive coordinator. You got to plan for him because he really thrives off that play action, and I'm a big fan. I would love to see a Fruita Monument game. Honestly, I feel like I've been saying that a lot about all these teams here. But, I mean, they're talented. I think, you know, they got a lot of next-level players there. And, you know, with their ability to control the pace of the game, anything could happen. I think they'll build on that success from last year. So there you go. Moving on, though, keeping this thing going, though. At number 6, we got Vista Ridge here. Here, let me go ahead and pull up the film real quick here. In case you didn't know, they have the number 1 rated quarterback in the entire state in 4-star Arizona commit Braden Dorman. Last year went 7-4. You know, they won a playoff game against Skyline and then they lost. I mean, this was a team that we were really sad to see not have Dom Nichols, who was going to be a game changer for them. That's why we predicted them as a contender. But even then, they did a good job. They won 7-4. You know, now they are losing some guys in Justice Laulu, who's going to be a big loss there. He's going to Eastern Washington. He was a big-time starter on offense and defense, so that's tough. We're losing Isaiah Garcia, who's their lead tackler. Xavier Cisneros, who's their interception leader. You know, and altogether on defense, they're losing 7 of their top 11 tacklers. Plus, by the way, Keyshawn Bridges, who's their second leading receiver in yards and touchdowns. So that's tough, but here's the thing. They got the number 1 quarterback in the state, and they have a receiving core that is extremely deep, starting with BB Hills. I believe he has committed to Washington State. He's a speedster. He's a game breaker. He could hit a home run at any minute. You know, he could take any catch to the house. And I believe that, you know, whether it's on special teams or offense. Then you got Keyshawn Dooley. You know, he's going to do his thing as well. He had a lot of success last year. You have a big body receiver in Gavin Jenkins. He's 6'4". Some younger guys to talk about. You have Mason Carter. He was a freshman last year. Will be a sophomore this year. Incoming freshman I want to talk about is Kobe Dooley. He's going to be coming back. You know, speedster, one of the fastest freshmen, one of the fastest players in the entire state, period. You know, then on defense, you got 2 leaders here. And JoJo Garnett and AJ Jordan, they're gonna stop the run and they're gonna get pressure and they're gonna make defensive plays. This Vista Ridge team, they're gonna have an excellent passing offense. They're gonna probably have the top 1 in the state, and then their defense is gonna be solid. We're just gonna have to see how well they do, because they're gonna have to really lean on this passing offense to find success, as they haven't really found a running game yet. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that running game has been quite elusive for Vista Ridge here, and you know, that becomes really important in the postseason, where I think we found they should have been in the postseason a couple of years ago, but when they were given the opportunity, I mean, look, that's when balance can help out so much. And I mean, Braden Dorman is throwing like 30 passes a game, like holy crap, right? So being able to run the ball would definitely help out with just like wear and tear on his arm, on the receivers, on the linemen who always have to pass block. I mean, you can see their fatigue throughout games, but I mean, they are very, very talented nonetheless. I think that, each year they get better. I mean, yeah, they got the top quarterback. He's easily the leading candidate as far as top 5 senior quarterbacks on our list. He's the leading candidate for Offensive Playmaker of the Year. BB Hills is someone who's super electric. And, I think this defense can take a couple of steps forward this year. So, yeah, Vista Ridge, I'm also very high on them. And, they'll have plenty of chances to be tested somewhat early in the season. So I think that those tests will go a long way.
Absolutely. We'll see. I mean, if they don't have a running game, then, we're looking at a potential situation where Braden Dorman has to throw over 3,000 yards at least. And then he obviously has to go over 30 touchdowns. And honestly, I'm just going to throw this out there. I mean, it's not like a prediction or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had a 50 pass attempt game. Now, I don't think they would want to do that, but if it's a shootout and it's just not stopping, then we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if that does. By the way, backup quarterback Ben Noblet, he will be there, and he might get he probably will get some varsity snaps and, in shootouts, in blowouts and stuff like that. So
Broncos 77 challenge winners too in the past game. I mean, it is 77, but still.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, arguably the top passing game, and potentially one of the top offenses. We'll see. They got to win games this season, and we'll see how far Dorman could take him in their last year. So that'll be exciting to watch. But another team I want to talk about here is Pueblo West at number 5 here. Last year, I mean, they had some success and whatnot. They ran the ball kind of a lot more than I thought they would, which is fine. But this year should see something a little bit different. They already played a game against Grand Junction, like I said earlier in the stream, and they won it. They won by like 20 or so. And I will actually be at the Pueblo West Dakota Ridge game this Friday, so it should be really exciting. But last year went 7-5. They are losing some guys like Vladimir Dabovich, Tyler Cullen, Jeremiah Sanchez, Hunter Johnson, both of the running backs who had a lot of success, were super productive the last couple years, plus their quarterback Cole Brinkley. But and they're losing Sontag Porter, who had 10 sacks last year. But this offense is going to be extremely explosive. They got a lot of receivers, and they have a talented sophomore quarterback here in Gavin Lockett. He's a dual threat. He's somebody that got hurt last year. This year, it's his time to take over, and he could potentially lead a top 5 offense. I'm pretty sure of that. So definitely got to look out for him. He's somebody that you just can't, you can't just force him to throw it and whatnot. He's going to burn you on the ground as well. So there you go. At receiver, you have Gage Martinez. We know what he could do. This year, he could have a breakout year statistically and whatnot and be one of the top receivers in his class. Have no doubt about that. He's one of the best slot receivers out here. Then you got Titus White from my hometown, P-Town, and whatnot. 6'3", 210 pounds, fantastic athlete, jump ball guy. There aren't many cornerbacks that are going to be able to stop him in one-on-one. So he's going to be a beast. And then I got to throw out this other guy, Donovan Robinson. He's another guy who could play and do his thing as well. He caught a touchdown last week. And then you also have Jacob Trader. Altogether, this is a team that's going to have a very explosive offense and some pieces on defense. But this defense is going to have to gel, and that's why they are not higher than this. But regardless, this offense will be fun to watch.
Dang, that might have been your best one so far, Simon.
It's all right.
But, this Pueblo West team, also believe in them. I love a good passing attack. I love good skill receivers here. I think that, as Simon mentioned, a lot of those pieces missing on defense. You're losing a very solid interior lineman as well. Those are some concerning things. And I think that, it's just like, how consistent are they going to be? Because, while their highs were pretty high last year and they ended the season on a really good note in that double overtime, 1-point loss to Palmer Ridge, their lows were bad last year. Their lows were not encouraging whatsoever. So it's really hard to, take some of their lows with a grain of salt and still be super high on them. But I do think that everything that they're returning and the way that they ended their season is where my positivity comes from for this Pueblo West team.
Absolutely. Also, they could run the ball. I'm just going to throw that out there. I believe Jacob Trader will probably be that guy for them, or one of those guys for them. So we will see about Pueblo West. They're going to have plenty of chances to punch up. So I'm just going to put that out there. But Cody, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this is a team that I've been very high on ever since they won their championship in 2020, and that's the Loveland Red Wolves. Look, we got them here at number 4, and look, initially when I was researching Loveland, I didn't think it was going to be a pretty sight because they are losing our number 1 senior linebacker from the 2022 class in Ian Loomis, one of the best players in Colorado football, period. Just very well-rounded. Pass rush, pass defend, run defend, anything you ask him to do, he could do it. Tyson Williams is somebody else on the defense who is pretty solid. And, they all are also losing a first-team All-State lineman in Uziel Ruiz. But, I was surprised at how much defensive talent was returning to Loveland, because if this team makes a run, it's going to be defensively driven and offensively moved along, right? Look, they have a sophomore who was the second tackle for loss leader last year in Stansberry, who returns after 10 tackles for loss, who was only second to Ian Loomis. Look, and he's just one of eight of the top tacklers returning to this team, including incoming seniors. Dylan Lindgren, going to be on our watch list for top 5 senior linebackers. He had 133 tackles. Hudson Vagasser, who had 90 tackles. And, considering how many tackles they lost last year and just Loomis alone, it's impressive how many tackles they are returning in 66%. Cody Lease, he was a solid safety. He's an opportunistic guy who can, intercept the ball when it's thrown up in the air. And overall, 8 of the 11 interceptions from last year will be returning back in the incoming classes. And, looking at last year in the games that they lost, I wouldn't even put it on the defense. I'd rather put it on the offense, who, just didn't score a whole lot in their losses last year. But I think they're somebody who can return some serious scoring potential. Look, Garrett Harstead, he ran for 18 touchdowns and over 1,000 yards last year. And he's also getting his running mate, Drew Foley, back in the fold, who had over 1,000 yards and 15 scores, along with Garrett's, 11 throwing touchdowns, right? So I'm looking for these numbers to continue. I'm looking for the consistency, good running attack, even greater defense, probably one of the best defenses in state, probably a top 10 unit in state out of this Loveland squad.
Yeah, no, probably. And honestly, last year I wasn't as high on them, but this year, I got some faith in them. I think this defense is going to be real solid, and I think Garrett Harstead, he could be due for another breakout season, to be honest with you, and turn it up another level. I was at that playoff game where their season unfortunately ended against Pine Creek, and it came down to a goal line stand, which was just an excellent tackle by Brett Alvey and the gang there. And so I honestly felt like at that point, after watching that game, Loveland could have went on and competed and potentially went back or go back to state. And they could potentially do that this year as well. We'll just have to see what happens. Like you said, Cody, offensively, they got to pick it up just a little bit here. They can't make as many mistakes, and they got to take advantage of the opportunities their defense will give them, which is going to be a lot. So
they could be a lot like last year's Chatfield this year, honestly.
They really could be, and I would not be surprised at all. That's a really good comparison. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But moving on though, at number 3, we have the team that played them in state a couple years ago in Palmer Ridge. Last year had a pretty successful season, and they were losing a lot of players, like a ton of players, and they still went 10-2. They lost to Erie in the playoffs 28-18. That was obviously a really tough loss. Anthony Costanzo, their star safety, did not play that game, and I feel like if he did, maybe it would have been different, but it is what it is, because at this point right now, they are losing Anthony Costanzo permanently, as he is over at UNLV. On top of that, they're losing Alec Falk and Connor Jones, who are at Air Force and Michigan, respectively. They're losing Connor Cook, who had 942 yards and 15 touchdowns for them last year. And then they're losing a lot on their defense. They're losing 7 of their top 11 tacklers, with the majority of that coming on their defensive line, which is a really big concern. But here's the thing about Palmer Ridge. They have a ton of skill players. But before I talk about those guys, let me talk about the leader of the infamous/famous Monument Moving Company. That's Jackson St. Aubin. I believe he just committed here. Oh my gosh. I want to say it was Yale. He committed to an Ivy League school. I apologize if I got it wrong here, but he's a stud of an athlete, definitely a D1 guy. He will lead this team on offense. I will have a pretty young offensive line, so there you go. But some other guys that I expect to step up is Casey Fackrell and KJ Smedley. I think they're going to be excellent at receiver and cornerback. You also have Holden Wright as a first-year starter. He had 98 tackles as a sophomore. He should be due for another great season there. They have Josh Gerlach, a 6'3", 200-pound safety. He's going to turn up along with Chris Rice, another 6'3", 200-pound, Jesus Christ, safety. So they're going to have a very tough secondary, plus Derek Hester, who will be returning and should be improved after putting up pretty solid numbers. Look, this Palmer Ridge team, honestly, defensively, as far as skill players go, I feel like they match up pretty well. And then offensively, they're going to be able to score a lot of points with their guys there like Derek Hester, Smedley, Fackrell, and Gator Robinson, who I didn't mention, but he's a stud of a running back as well. Sorry, I went a little bit over there, but they got like a million athletes over there. And I feel like if they're going to match up with a passing team, they're going to do it really well. As good as any team, to be honest with you.
They always do, right? They always
yes.
do. That's what their brand is now, and they live up to it. So if you don't have them in their top 5, I just think that it's disrespectful, honestly.
I mean, what other team in Colorado has 2 6'3" safeties that are athletic? It's not like they run a 5.0 or a 4.8. Like they get after it, you know. So we'll see. You know, I think a lot of it does hinge on Derek Hester. Wouldn't you agree, though, Cody?
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, their season came down to him last year, and he's got to be better. That's really what that. I watched the whole game, and that's what it came down to.
The playoff game, where he didn't have Costanzo, by the way, who was a stud receiver as well. So
yeah, but he also threw it to the other team instead of his own team anyway. So. But
yes, it happens.
Moving on to another team that had really high expectations from us last year and just fell a little bit shy, but is poised for another great year, is Dakota Ridge. Look, they were a favorite, and they eventually lost to the state champs in Chatfield. It sucks that they had to play them twice in one season because they were capable of beating them once. In a very close game, they beat a lot of teams in track meets last year. And, they do lose some big weapons. I think that the biggest loss easily is Dante Capolungo, who is just one of the best, probably the best athlete last year in Colorado. I'm not even going to try and take away from, the fact that he was overlooked. But, there's still lots of talent in the secondary. I'm looking at Calvin Ward, who's going to be a great, defensive back this year, great corner. He can also play slot sometimes. Brandon Miller, Landon Giebler, these were all guys who had double-digit pass deflections last year, and if they can turn some of these pass deflections into interceptions, that's fantastic. You also get Braden Cusick, who was one of the best tacklers and is also a great pass-defending linebacker, and somebody who also blocked a punt last year. This team made a lot of plays on special teams. And look, if you win in special teams, you only have to win in one other facet of the game to win that game. So you have all that going for them. You have the best running back in this senior class so far in Noah Triplett, who is a threat to go for over 2,000 yards, and any run can be a 70-yard touchdown run, right? He just has incredible speed and power to boot with it. He's also incredibly dangerous out of the backfield. And I think that they have their most athletic quarterback yet in Blake Palladino, who, had some playing time last year as a sophomore. I don't think was fully utilized to the extent of his powers, but is just extremely athletic and has one of the strongest arms in the state, especially for his class, maybe the strongest arm in the entire state. Look, we broke down his film, and I think that he's going to be an upgrade as well as a 2-year starter for this Dakota Ridge team. And, this Dakota Ridge team had a quarterback that ran for 378 last year who wasn't even super athletic. So Palladino could be a 500-plus yard rusher on top of Triplett and all the other skill positions that they rotate so well.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, absolutely agreed. Oh boy, They have a lot of weapons. Plus, they're extremely well coached, which is definitely a weapon on their own. I mean, God, we're huge fans of their coaching staff. I kind of just yelled in that mic. I'm sorry about that, but
I'm glad that they don't have headphones on. Warning.
That's how passionate. That's how passionate I am about this coaching staff. They're one of the best. I respect them a lot. I got a lot of respect for them. They know how to coach well. You know, they're very versatile in their coaching as well, defensively and offensively too. Real creative there. I mean, they are tough to play. Like, even if they didn't have all these athletes, they would have been tough to play because they're going to give you a lot of looks. They do have some of the greatest athletes in the entire state, though. Triplet, beast, you know. He's a speedster, but he's going to run you over, too, if he wants to. Palladino, I've literally seen this guy make every single throw possible, and I've followed him a lot in the offseason. He is that guy. And so going against Pueblo West, another team that, you know, loves to throw the ball, they're great offensively. They showed that in their game last week against Grand Junction. It's going to be real interesting. I'm super excited. Should be one of the premier games in the entire state all year. So I'm super excited about that. We'll see where these teams stack.
Exactamundo. And we'll see how everyone stacks up against the number 1 ranked team. I think that they're ranked 4th in the state by max preps out of any classification for Colorado football, and that is going to be the Erie Tigers. Look, obviously, they were literally like a play short last year in state of winning state in only their second season in 4A. And, you know, they are losing a lot of guys, especially, you know, big time guys. I'm looking at John Pastor on the offensive line, who is a dog. I'm looking at Caleb Tyson, who's going to be at UNC. And, you know, skill position wise, they'll be stumbling as 5 of their 6 leading receivers graduate. And then, you know, look, they're losing a lot, but they're also returning a lot. It's like it's a healthy balance and reload. I think, you know, defense could be a major concern for a lot of guys, but they have a secondary paced by Trey Kana, who is great last year with 13 pass deflections, 4 interceptions. They also have Derek Hall, who is an all-around havoc wreaker last year, forcing fumbles, batting passes, getting tackles in the backfield. So I think that, you know, he'll take a step forward. As only a sophomore, I think that Jackson Cowgill had way more of an argument to be on some all-state teams. Following a season saw his 6'5", 250-pound frame pace the Erie squad with 10 sacks, 4 hurries, 5 tackles for loss. He's just really good. He took over that Palmer Ridge game at times against a Monument Moving Company, right? So he was beating some of the best linemen in the state, some of the best linemen in the country pretty regularly in that game. And then, I mean, how can you talk about this Erie team without talking about Blake Barnett, 3-star quarterback, upside of a 4-star guy, honestly. Look, 50-plus touchdown club, 3,500-plus total yards, our 4A most valuable playmaker. He's going to keep this offense rolling. He also has a great receiver returning in Caden Lettuce, you know, who's going to be very, very good for this team. He still has some guys up front that are going to be good. I'm looking at Logan Gilmore to take a huge step forward after already being a powerful guard last year to open up some lanes in the run game. And yeah, I just think that they're going to have a lot of talent returning at skill positions. And they also have, you know, the most important position returning after a hugely dominant season.
Yes, absolutely agreed. I mean, look, this is a team that, I mean, they got to show consistency here. I think that's the biggest thing. They have a lot of great athletes. They have a great talent pool out there. You know, I know what they do out there. They're very well coached. They're developed well. We'll see who steps up for this team moving forward. You know, I think they're obviously here at number 1 because they went to state last year. They're the only team with state experience because Chatfield moved up to 5A. So we'll see what happens, but I'm looking at Blake, beat him up, Barnett. We'll see if he could take a step forward as a passer. I think he can. We got to see him a little bit in the offseason. Also heard him talk about it at Media Day, and honestly feel pretty good about it, you know. And he's still going to run you over, too. You know, they don't call him beat him up for nothing. That's a thing now. I'm going to start calling him that on the recaps. Beat him up. Yeah, he is that dude, man. He is that dude. He's been taking a lot of visits. He's a 3-star guy now. In my opinion, he's probably more of a 4-star guy, but that's just me. But, we'll see how far he leads this team and if he could galvanize the rest of these guys as well to lead, because there are some very good athletes, like you said, Gilmore, the Cowgirls. They're going to do their job. And, my bad, Caden Lettuce as well, who's going to Southern Utah. They're going to do their job, and, we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, it's all about consistency. And so any team could lose just as much as any team could win. So, yeah. Yep. Beat them up. Oh, my God. We have been streaming for 3 hours. Isn't that insane? And we still have 5A to do.
We're almost through it, Coach V. We're almost through it.
We are. Let's go ahead and look through these preseason, or review, the 4A preseason power rankings here. At 10, we have the tie with Skyline and Montrose, both there. At 9, we have Windsor. At 8, we have Denver South. 7, Fruita Monument. 6, Vista Ridge. At 5, we have Pueblo West. At 4, we have Loveland. At 3, we have Palmer Ridge. At 2, we have Dakota Ridge. And then at number 1, we have the state runner-ups in Erie. Cody, do you want to go, or do you want me to go?
I can go. Okay, so look,
go for it.
I had Erie 1. I had Dakota Ridge 2. I had Loveland 3 and Palmer Ridge 4. So those were the only things that got a little flipped. Really high on Loveland, but I mean, it's all the same to me. Then I had Vista Ridge 5, Denver South 6, Pueblo West 7, Fruita Monument 8, Windsor 9, Montrose 10, Skyline right at 11. I just want to see how this first week goes. Then some great teams just don't quite make it in here that are also magnificent. I'm looking at Aurora Central that's returning one of the best backs in state in Kyrie's Kirby, as well as a ton of guys in the trenches that's going to make them a really solid team. I think a team that's going to go back to playoffs. Broomfield, who has one of the best quarterbacks in the state, and Cola Crew, who has just a massive arm, as well as way more experience returning cohesively. I talked to them at Broncos 7v7, and they just said that, the mentality is really different. They're not acting like they already have state this year. They said that was a bit of a problem last year, and I think that their defense is going to be improved. Golden, obviously headlined by Giselle Riley. They did lose their coach this past season, but, I mean, with the tools and weapons that they have on offense, there's still going to be, he's still a guy who could go for over 3,000 scrimmage yards, honestly. And I'm looking at not that team, actually, because I think they're in 5A now. So go ahead, Simon.
You had 30 seconds left, but all right, I
gotta catch us back up. We're on 3 hours. You take 4 minutes every time.
I will take 2 minutes and 30 seconds to compensate for your time. So, all right, my personal power rankings, which, by the way, contributed to these. I know it's been a while since we've described our process, but we'll do that before we do 5A. But at number 1, I have Erie. Number 2, got Dakota Ridge. Number 3, Palmer Ridge. 4, Pueblo West. At 5, I have Fruita Monument. That's how high I am on them. I think they could really turn it up this season and surprise some teams. At 6, this is no disrespect, obviously, but I have Loveland, definitely a team that can move up. At 7, I have Vista Ridge. It's a lot of pressure to put on their passing game, but if they're going to put pressure on anybody, it might as well be the best quarterback and deepest receiving core / most talented receiving core in the entire state. So we'll see what happens there. 8, I got Windsor. 9, I got Denver South. And 10, I had Skyline. After that, just outside, I have Montrose. They're losing a lot. They have Blake Griffin. They have Demarion Lopez. We'll see what happens, but they need to prove more to me this season than last, since they are losing so much. At 12, got Broomfield, Cola Crew and the gang. At 13, Aurora Central. 14, Golden. 15, Ponderosa. That's high-key a team that scares me. If there's any team that's going to get, any team in the top 10 that's going to get upset by a team outside of the top 10, I think Ponderosa could be one of those squads. A lot of great linebackers. Excellent kicker, by the way. So you better hold them off on the other side of the 50-yard line, because he could kick 60-yarders pretty consistently. So there you go. That's not cap. Go ahead and look at his Instagram, by the way, and whatnot there. Then you have Brighton at 16, Mesa Ridge, Cheyenne Mountain, Grand Junction, Heritage, Thomas Jefferson, Vista Peak, Widefield, Falcon. I might as well just did all the playoffs there. But yeah, so there you go. We'll see what happens. I think 4A will be real competitive. A lot of faces leaving for 5A, which will be interesting. So I think it's pretty wide open in 4A as well. Won't you agree, Cody?
Yeah, look, there's a ton of movement and there's a ton of returning talent. So I think the playing field is very even this year as far as playing experience amongst these top 10 teams.
Yes, absolutely. You have some powerhouses leaving, which leaves some voids. So if you want it, you have to take it. Can't wait for another team to give it to you because they won't. All these teams are talented. They're stacked with D1 guys, you know. Find a way to get it done.
Ladder.
What'd you say?
Chaos is a ladder.
Chaos is a ladder. Plus a lot of great coaches, too. We'll see some good coaching battles this season, hopefully. I think that might mean the difference in some of these games, which we do not say a lot.
True.
Yeah. By the way, that's the same with 3A. Cody, before we start here, do you want to go over our process with these rankings and whatnot? We've literally been streaming for 3 hours. By the way, welcome to the stream if you joined at some point and whatnot. Just as a quick reviewer before we head into our final level of Colorado high school football and rank these top 10 teams.
Yeah, so just to reiterate for the first time in 3 hours, Simon and I put together a top 10 power rankings list for every single classification. We do this based on our season previews. Go ahead and give those a listen. We put a ton of work into those where we went through every single team, 1 through 5A classification, talked about their recap from last year, as well as returning playmakers, some guys who graduated as well, and then projected a window of wins. So these power rankings are based off of all that research from our off season, as well as watching some film and watching highlights and doing some off season work as far as 7v7s and whatnot in that regard. So once we rank them 1 through 10, we have a point system. If you're number 1, you get 10 points, so on and so forth, 2, 9, 3, 8, etc. Add those up, composite 1 through 10 PMC preseason power rankings. 2022.
Obviously.
And I got...
Oh, what? Sorry. I was just going to say, obviously, it's preseason. Take it with a grain of salt. If you feel some type of way, win. And that's how you move up. We'll be updating these every week on our recaps. So there you go there. But sorry, Cody, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just figured I'd give you a quick little breather before you go ahead and get this thing started.
I'm going to tear into it. Beat them up. All right. So here at number 9, I actually have 2 teams who are 10/9 because we have a tie. Classic PMC stuff. But the first team that I'm going to talk about here is Arvada West. Look, they won the Jeffcoat League last year, and that's a huge freaking deal, okay? I mean, that's a very competitive league in 5A, and the fact that they won it and had that first round bye was massive, all right? But they do lose a lot. They lose 97% of their hurries, 85% of their sacks. Look, their defense is taking some serious kicks to the groin here as far as graduation. I'm looking at Wyatt Blumquist. I'm looking at Hagel Pitt. I'm looking at Henkel. I'm looking at Brandon Simpson. I'm looking at Michael Reynolds. Tons of tackles for losses, tons of hurries, tons of sacks. There's also, on special teams, they are losing some serious talent in Jacob Simpson, as well as Ian Lee. He's somebody's film who I broke down. He's playing on the next level. I want to say he's playing like NAIA football or D3. But, he was a great slot receiver, good speed, mismatched on linebackers, obviously. And, he paced the team in total return yards. He had 156 on kickoff and 236 punt return yards. Usually you see the kickoff return numbers a little bit higher because you have more room to run. But, overall, 800 yards of scrimmage, lots of talent departing. I think that's why they're not as high as, maybe top 5 where they would have been last year if we did like an end of season power rankings. But I mean, look, Charlie Smith, he's somebody who's going to take a step forward on this defense. Jordan Schneider was somebody as a sophomore who had quite a few tackles for loss and very limited action. But I think that the real talk of the town here is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. You're getting Ethan Cook back, and, he's going to cook up some of these defenses this year. I saw him throw in the Broncos 7v7. I'm not as worried about his hip I even got to talk to him. I asked him how it felt, and he said good. Obviously, it could look a little bit different in pads, but so far he's looked like he's made an excellent recovery, and he has great receivers catching the ball for him. Drew Martinez, Brady Witherspoon, both very solid guys. But, Drew Martinez is just a mismatched nightmare on the offensive side of the ball, and this team is going to score in droves.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed. Big fan of Ethan Cook. I think he's a great player and whatnot. I know Arvada West ran the spread last year, and they got a couple of teams who can't throw the ball and whatnot, or won't throw the ball. And so we'll see. I think this year will be really interesting. They got to earn their way back, though. With the number of players they're losing and whatnot, obviously the injury to Cook as well. This is definitely a little bit of a little bit of maybe a redemption year, like, hey, we still got it type of years. So we'll see, they're obviously here in the top 10 for a reason, though. So there you go.
Oh, yeah. And there's another spread passing team here at number 10/9, whatever you want to call it. They're tied for the same spot as Arvada West, and that is the Fairview Knights. Look, their offense was potent last year, but, in the graduating seniors department, it's called graduating seniors / departing talent. They did lose freshman phenom Beckham Kritza. We as a state lost him to California. Obviously wish him the best of luck. He is still PMC fam. But, they're losing him. They're losing CU commit Grant Page. Obviously, that's a tough loss. They also lose one of our top 5 interior offensive linemen in Nick Worster, who is very solid. They lose Ben Anderson, who is a solid senior receiver. And, they're just losing some solid pieces on offense. But I don't think it's time to panic. Look, Rowan is a very solid quarterback. He's going to be stepping up here. He got to throw the ball and run the offense on the JV level last year as a sophomore, and he excelled. There were points where he looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the offseason for the Ducks this past year. So obviously, I think that he's proven in passing situations there. He has one of the best, if not the best, class of 25 prospect, and Jordan Rochelle catching passes for him, who is like top 5 in the entire country of freshman receivers in like receptions, yards, touchdowns, and whatnot there. He's very good, and he's just a mismatch. And he's somebody who can run routes from the inside and the outside. He's somebody who could probably even do a little bit more on special teams this year to kind of fill a void that has been left behind. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you have just great incoming talent as far as, defensive ends, turn linebackers that can hit hard. Zach Lewis is somebody who's going to be very good his senior year. He had 104 tackles last year. Josh Zhang is somebody who's going to be returning, who had a pair of picks to his name. And, Ryder Villarreal was another freshman from last year who had a team-leading 58 interception return yards, as well as 2 fumble recoveries. So playmakers on offense and defense leads to another good year for the Knights.
Did you mention Brock Colstead?
Why don't you mention Brock Colstead?
Yeah, I'll mention Brock. That's our guy.
That's our guy.
Another class of 2025 guy. Love the kid. Great linebacker. Oh my God. He is probably one of the best young cover linebackers in the entire state. Probably one of the best cover linebackers in the entire state, period. Got to see him with TFG. Saw him with, work out with EPO. He is that guy. Also, he's huge and he's a massive athlete that moves really well, and he's going to be a problem. Played defensive end last year. Will be moving to linebacker, which I feel like is a little bit more of a better fit for him, and he's going to turn up. This linebacker duo, and we don't talk about many linebacker duos, of Zach Lewis and Brock Colstead could be real freaking dangerous. Like, they're going to give a lot of teams headaches. And then also, I just want to reiterate, Rowan Reisner, he's been waiting for a while, and he is a good player. And so, yes, Beckham Kritza, he's a talent. They're losing him. That's a tough loss. But Rowan Reisner, he's going to step in, and he's going to show the state what he could do, finally. And I am really excited for him, happy for him. He's been working hard this offseason, got to track his progress a lot with the Ducks. Shout out to them and whatnot. And, we'll see what happens, but don't be surprised if he turns up this year and everyone's like, oh, where'd this Rowan kid come from? Because we've been known So there you go.
Boom.
Is it me that's up next? My bad.
Yes.
All right. Well, those are our tied teams at 10. At number 8, technically, because they're tied at 10, we got Thunder Ridge. Let me go ahead and start the clock here and pull up the film here.
There's no way you're going to make the time on this one. I'm calling it now.
Yeah, I'm probably not. Hey, so last year had a really good year. Despite it, I don't know, I guess some people thought maybe it was a little bit of down year. I don't think so. I mean, they had an excellent quarterback in Seth Frazier. They had weapons in Chase Tompkins, who is basically the Deebo Samuel of this team. Did a very good job. You have J.D. Rickford, who is their starting back. You have Jack Horsford, who's their lead receiver. Derek Pacheco. You have 2 linemen they're losing in Brandon Ems and Tyler Chatal, who are moving on to play on the next level, by the way, so congrats to them. So they are losing quite a bit of talent. But they're only losing 4 of their top 11 tacklers, and so this defense is going to be nasty, led by the guy in this film, Caden Schaus. Got to meet bro last year. Shout out to, is it OT? Oh my gosh.
OTG athlete.
Yep, OTG athlete. Excellent program, by the way. You know, they do their thing, they train their athletes, and he immediately stood out as one of the smoothest athletes we've seen, despite him being a big boy. You know, he's coming off the edge, he's a defensive end, you know, and he has an excellent combination of power and speed. Definitely somebody who can make our top 5 list. By the way, he was All-State second team, and he will be a problem this year. Then you also have this other safety out there in Caleb Keith, 6'3", 180 pounds, actual track star, only got 36 tackles, 2 picks last year, 6 pass deflections, but he's an absolute beast. He's going to hold it down. He's probably going to be one of the best safeties in the state this upcoming year. They're also returning Aiden Olshan on defense at linebacker. He's going to do his thing. And then on offense, you have some weapons here. You have Richard Okuno, one of the best slot receivers in the entire state. He's going to turn up. You have CJ Reese, 6'3", 180 pounds. He's due for a breakout season. You have Zachariah Smith, who's coming through. And then on top of that, you have freshman phenom DJ Bordeaux. I know I'm over the time, so I won't go into it too much, but we'll see when he does get the start. I know they have a senior in Cooper Kier who did get a couple snaps last year on varsity, but DJ, I mean, he is a great athlete. He's probably somebody they're going to roll out as a runner and whatnot, maybe in some passing situations, but I said this in my prediction. I assume he's going to take over eventually, and if he does, this team could be very dangerous, but still, though, this is a team that does have a lot to improve on. Maybe not a lot to improve on, but a lot to prove going to this year, considering the players they are losing to graduation. Oof, I am way over, but there's no way I was going to make that. Anyways, what do you think about Thunder Ridge, Cody?
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Look, they're returning pieces that matter, and also, I just want to shout out real quickly, Chase Tompkins volunteered for HRCA as a youth flag football coach, and it's a very pleasant community guy there. So best of luck to him heading to Doane, I believe is where he's going. And then, yeah, you know, this team is talented in all the right spots. Defense wins championships, and I think that, you know, Thunder Ridge tradition is to have a very good defense, and if it can be complemented on the offensive side of the ball, they could be a real threat this year.
Oh my God. I just realized I was muted on the stream, I think.
You're kidding.
Oof, that is bad. Unless I just muted just now. Should I just do it in... I don't know. What should I do?
I'm giving you 10 seconds to give your 10 cents on Thunder Ridge.
Okay, going over it again. Jesus Christ. All right, I'm sorry. Defense is going to be elite. Caden Schaus, elite edge rusher. He's going to cause a lot of problems. Even if they didn't have other defensive linemen, which they do, you know, he would be a one-man wrecking machine. He's going to be a problem. Caleb Keith, 6'3", 180-pound safety, literal track star. Going to be one of the best safeties out there. Defense is looking really good. They're returning most of those guys. Biggest question is probably going to be on offense. How well are they going to do? Are they going to be able to replace the talent that is graduating? So... there you go. Jeez,
that was sorry. The longest 10 seconds of my life. By the way,
I can't. They can't be the only team out of 50 that I don't do a thing on. I'm sorry, but as that goes for all these teams, honestly. But yeah, sorry about that. Anyways, Cody, go ahead. I need to get a drink of water and hydrate.
All right, start that timer for me. It'll be done by the time you get back. But anyways, I'm talking about Ralston Valley. Look, they showed a lot of looks on offense this year, and I think they found some success actually spreading it out. And I think that Jared Yanisidu, new coach, is one of the best parts of incoming talent / returning playmakers. I think he's going to spread it out and maximize the potential of this Ralston Valley offense that I think has been hindered by the wing T look. I think that they have incredible talent on both sides of the ball. I think defensively they have a beast of a safety in Jason Tommy, who first dazzled us in looks at TFG, but was a beast last year. Deflected 5 passes, forced 3 fumbles, had a handful of interceptions. Look, he can play in the box. He can play the pass game really well. And then as far as, the rest of the defense goes, they have Gunnar Shoplin, who was in the backfield quite a bit. And they also have fella Eli Keith, who had plenty of tackles for loss. And these guys also got to the quarterback really well. And then, they have a couple of backs like junior tailback Beneo, who reached 1,000 yards and also showed hands with 250 receiving yards. And then Braden Schatz stood 100 yards above everyone else, leading the team with 437 yards receiving and 3 scores. So 3 of the top 4 receivers are coming back, which is big time. And then you also have Logan Madden, who as a sophomore completed 65% of his passes and threw 7 scores to only 2 interceptions. And, I think that he might be competing against incoming senior James Woshner, who himself completed a decent amount of passes and also had a handful of touchdowns. So I think that, passing game wise, they have some options. They always have athletes in the secondary. They always have athletes at wide receiver. I know from my time playing them, they've had the same kind of thing going on. And I think that Jared Yanisido is going to blow the lid off of this offense, hopefully. They do have an intense first test against Cherry Creek, one that Dave Logan himself has circled on his schedule and is mildly concerned about. So that you're going to get the A game of Ralston Valley and Cherry Creek in the opener of their seasons.
Nice. Completely agreed. Really looking forward to seeing Jason Tommy play. I think he could really turn up. Plus, with this new head coach, running a spread, that's exciting. I think the biggest reason why they are here, though, and not higher is just because I'm not sure how well they are going to do this first year with this new head coach. It's probably not going to be horrible, and they're probably still going to make the playoffs and do their thing. But we'll just see. I think there are definitely some questions here, Is that fair to say, at least?
Yeah, because, the other guy, Lloyd, was just really consistent.
Yeah, and I don't know what else more you could hope for. So, there you go there. Cody, are you good? All right, well, the show must go on, and so that is what we are going to do here. So, Ralston Valley at number 7. Here at number 6, we got Pine Creek. Here, let me start the time, get the film. So, last year, obviously, they were a 4A team. They did their thing and whatnot. Came just a little bit short of going to state, lost to Chatfield, who obviously won state, so that's not a bad deal, but altogether went 10-3, so not too bad at all. But going into this year, they are going to be a dangerous team on the 5A level, despite losing some guys like Kale Reeves Dunbar, Jojo Roy, who is their quarterback, Zion Hill, Braden Kramer, Gavin Wetzel, Landon Neal, Edward Bowman, Sam Stearman. Despite losing all those guys, they're only losing 5 of their top 11 tacklers, and they do have a very strong team, starting with their young quarterback Cameron Cooper. As a freshman, obviously played freshman snaps, but was the backup on varsity and got his first start against Chatfield, which was really bad. Well, it wasn't really bad, but that's a really tough matchup to take on. That's what I mean. The situation was really bad. He actually got in against Loveland, and he did a solid job there. Got to see him. Basically, I've been following him since he was in middle school. He's done his thing. Going forward, he will be the guy. Look out for him. Then you got Mason Miller, whose highlights are playing right now. D1 guy, offered by Iowa State already, will only be a junior this year. Absolute monster of a man, 6 foot, 220-ish. definition of power back. He will be an absolute problem. And then on the offensive line, you got a bunch of D1 offensive linemen in Carson Kaplan, Devontae Johnson, Connor Laxon, Matthew Jennings, Tristan Randall. You got a bunch of guys who are going to clear the way. They're going to do their job there. So there you go. Then skill-wise, you have Justice Nicholson, Kai Goetze, Jerry Lydiot. They're going to do their thing. Then defensively, which has always been the strength of Pine Creek, you got Ramon Pacheco, Brett Alvey, Jaden Anatone, and Layden Robinson, who are going to hold it down. And per usual, Pine Creek is usually pretty solid, pretty good defensively, pretty stout, even in their down years. And so this is definitely not a down year. And so they are definitely a contender right away as they enter the 5A level. Cody, are you back with us?
Yes. And I heard what you said. My phone kind of chunged a little bit. But,
Oh my God.
you know, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're good. Just keep going.
Okay. Look, Pine Creek, they've been playing 5A teams. They've been playing them pretty well. So this transition, not a huge deal. Even Coach said that he felt like Chassa helped them out quite a bit here. And they competed against some 5A contenders last year pretty tightly. So look for them to do that again this year.
By the way, not Chassa helping them out, like that, but like scheduling wise,
Yes, like scheduling gradually more 5A teams as the years go on.
Yes, so I'd be surprised if they didn't make an impact right away. They're going to get their shot at a couple of teams, and, while they do have some young players, I mean, they have that perfect mix, you know what I mean? So I'm not like super worried about them. They'll be in the mix here for state and the playoffs. So yeah, but yeah, there you go there.
Yep.
You want to take it away from here? Go for it.
Yeah, back to somebody who can get it done in 2 minutes. We're gonna be talking about the We're gonna be talking about the Grandview Wolves here. Look, they were in the semis last year, and they're going to be returning a lot of talent. I think defensively is where I probably have a couple more questions in the secondary. They just have some major holes. I'm looking at Malik Singleton and Caden Rulo, two of the most talented secondary players in the entire state, regardless of classification and squad last year. Tons of interceptions and turnovers and general forced fumbles, opportune turnovers and forced fumbles, and the skill positions will just need basically a full reload as well. Evan Johnson's going to be graduating after having a ton of return yards as well as receiving yards. Tristan Burris only caught 2 less yards than Evan and was the leader on kickoff return. So lots of special teams and secondary guys to be replaced. However, don't worry too much. Their defense is still going to be strong. Max Kibbe returns after 102 tackles last year. And I think that they're going to be a really dynamic duo between him and Preston Emkin, who flew sideline to sideline while just laying down some serious hits at the point of contact and possessing speed to chase down quarterbacks and make plays in pass coverage as well, breaking up 4 passes. The Wa Kalanji family continues to be integral to Grandview defenses. After only a couple of years ago, one went to CSU. There's now another guy here in Malumba who's, going to enter his senior year terrorizing quarterbacks and leading the team in sacks and tackles for loss. And then you also have sophomore in Gonkalo, Wa Kalanji, who is second on the squad with 5 sacks. So both these guys are going to bring the pass rush. The front 7 is going to be really hard to run against, and I think it's going to make whoever is going to be up next in secondary going to make their job a lot easier. And then on offense, you have class of 2024 Liam Zarka, who was a dog last year. I mean, he let the world know who he was with that game-winning drive against Pomona and didn't really slow down. Almost had 2,000 passing yards. I think that he's going to take a huge step forward as a passer, and guys like Simon Kibbe are going to help him out by being big body targets.
Absolutely agreed. I don't think Grandview will miss much of a step here. I mean, you still got your quarterback, and we actually got to talk to Liam here at Media Day, one-on-one actually, so shout out to him. But, he is very confident in the receivers he has coming in. I know he does have a new group here after a lot of them did graduate, but, they're going to do their thing. The defense, they got some guys up front, especially, this is going to be a fun team to watch. They got a lot of talent, and it's going to leave room for players to step up, like a Zay Nito, by the way. I'm just going to shout him out real quick. So, there you go there. That's Grandview.
Yeah, and I mean, they lost to Cherry Creek by a single score last year, so they can hang in there with some tough teams.
They've been hanging, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, we got another tough team right up here next before Simon has 2 in a row, and that is Columbine. You know what they do. You know who they are. They're big and mean up front. They won the Broncos offensive lineman or defensive line. They won the lineman challenge. All right. So they're going to bully teams. They're going to run the wing T. They got a solid running back, oh my gosh, I am literally trusty. I'm trusting in the process here. But anyways, Tyree, he was somebody who was very solid last year, and he's going to be looking to take more snaps. They also have somebody in Josh Schneider who in limited action had a really high, yards per carry and eclipsed the 100-yard mark. So you got that. You have some upcoming talent in guys like James Bossinger, who might have, an expanded role this year and is just a great athlete. And you also have some guys returning to the defensive line like Rocky Shields, who's going to be awesome. Look, this defense is going to be suffocating this year. I don't care who you are. They have probably one of the best front sevens in football. You got Peyton Wainwright, who's one of the best linebackers, easily a top 5 senior linebacker candidate. And then you also have guys like Logan Correa. So, look, there's tons of big names that are coming in. There's tons of big names that are going out. And Logan Correa was actually a graduate, so pardon me on that one. But he tied him in sacks. Peyton did. So that's a huge bar to have met. Seth Cromwell graduated. But it's like everyone who they have graduated, it seems like they have somebody right there to replace them. And look, when I was looking at their window of wins, their window of wins is between 9 and 10, meaning that I could very easily see Columbine going 10-0, which is going to bode way better for them this year as far as, not having to play on the road. Their season ended on the road against Valor. I think playing with some home field advantage is going to go a long way for them. And I think that they're going to have that through the first or second round of the playoffs, which is not necessarily something that they had last season, coming in like third in the Jeffco League or something like that and kind of stumbling a little bit. I think that they're way more experienced on the offensive and defensive fronts. I think they're way stronger and way bigger, and that's going to lead to way more wins.
Yep, absolutely agreed. Look, this is a team that I wouldn't be surprised going to state. They could beat up any team they want, to be honest with you. I have no doubt about that. Really like Rocky Shields, like Will Adams. They're going to do their thing over there. Tyree Trustee, I mean, he's going to turn up this season. I already know. He's going to do his thing. I'm sure they're going to have couple other backs thrown in the mix there, but he's probably going to be the lead guy there. Wainwright, he's a beast. They have another linebacker. I think it's James. Is it Celestin? Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong, but I've definitely watched bro play, and I like the way he plays football. I like the way all these Columbine players play football. Also James Bassinger as well. Defensively, I think they could beat up any team they want. I think they could shut down any team they want. And just looking at this team on paper, and knowing these players and seeing them play, I really believe that. Offensively, they're going to have to control the pace, because if they get into a shootout, that's probably not the greatest thing. And so, as a team, they're going to have to work together. Defense, they got to lock up these teams, give the offense as many opportunities as possible. Offensively, you got to gas the other team, and you got to be equally as physical, and which I think they can do because of how dominant they are up front. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish at the top spot. Despite them not being number 1, they definitely could be in one of the top 2 spots at some point in the season. I'd be surprised if they weren't. So, we'll see. But I think they have that potential. So there you go.
Simon? All you on 3 and 2.
Yes, I got you here. Sorry. Let me get this set up right here. All right, so boom, there you go. Had Columbine and Grandview tied there. So we're at 3, and we got Regis Jesuit. Go ahead and put on the film here. Get this stuff started. So Regis Jesuit last year had a pretty solid year. I mean, went 8-4. Only team they lost to, or sorry, not the only team they lost to, but they only lost to Cherry Creek 28-7. so not too bad. I mean, they lost them 34-14 earlier in the season, and then they did have a close loss to Legend 42-41, but this is a good squad, and unfortunately, they are losing quite a bit of talent here. I'm just going to go down the line. They're losing their lead rusher, Xavier Carroll. That's 870 yards, 12 touchdowns. They're losing Dallas Macias. He was their second leading receiver, plus of their lead tackler. So there you go. Nuni Tuatelli, he's going to Cal. So there you go. Ezra Ikuban, he's going to UNC. Jaden Franklin, he's a next level player. Plus made our top 5 interior defensive line list. Losing Logan Hilliard and Dervin Taylor as well. So they're losing quite a bit of talent, but what they're returning definitely warrants this number 3 spot. They're bringing back some pass rushers here, including Hayden Moore. He had 5 sacks last year, 111 tacklers. He'll be a top, defender in the state. You have Andrew Metzger, He will be playing on defense as well. He's 6'5", 235, but he's a 3-star tight end committed to CU, so he's going to turn up on both sides of the ball. And on offense, you got a nice core here with Xander Carroll, a nice duel with their quarterback, Albert Anthony Medina, who I really feel like could turn up and have a breakout season this year, along with DeAndre Barnes, who is a 1,000-yard, he was a 645-yard, 7-touchdown receiver last year. He's probably going to be a 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown player this year. Look, this is a team that offensively, they're going to be explosive. They could beat you in a couple different ways here. While on defense, they have pass rushers. They have a guy in Joshua Harvey. They have they have a lot of DBs. It's Regis Jesuit. They always replenish pretty well here. But especially going into this year, they have a nice big 3 on offense. A big 4 if you want to count Metzger, which you should. And then defensively, they'll be good enough. So there you go there.
That's pretty good. Look, Regis Jesuit, I think that they're constantly in the conversation. And look, the roadblock that they run into year in and year out is basically Cherry Creek. And I think that talent-wise, that they're right up there. And that's why they're at our number 3 spot. I think that they have loads of talent. It's just a matter of putting it all together at the right time. I think that kind of segues a little bit into you really got to blow out teams that you're supposed to blow out. And take care of business there. And I think that they're in a great position to maybe even pull off some upsets this year. And I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be attending their season opener against, was it Valor, right?
It is Valor.
This coming Friday. So that'll be a heavyweight matchup between our number 3 and, sorry to spoil it, Simon, but also our number 2.
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, at number 2, we have Valor Christian. And by the way, Regis Jesuit, they're going to be really fun to watch. I mean, they got some guys who could make our top 5 senior list on the offensive side of the ball. Just going to say that. But at number 2, like Cody said here, we have Valor Christian. Let me get the film together here. Boom. Boom. Look, last year, it was fine. They went undefeated until they met Cherry Creek in the playoffs, where they lost again 21-0. I would definitely say that was a little bit of a disappointing season, because in my opinion, they should have won state. They were the more experienced team. They had a lot of talent, and they just lost. And so going into this season, they're losing a lot of guys. Obviously, they're losing Gavin Sawchuk. He's at Oklahoma. They're losing Colton Allen. He's at CU. They're losing Colton Rose. He's their starting tight end. They're losing Grant Simmons. He was their lead receiver with 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. They're losing 2 linemen who made our top 5 senior list, and Jake Mikula, who's at Stanford, and Caden Parrish at, I believe, Drake. They're losing Andrew Hale, who I believe is also at Drake. They're losing Jordan Norwood, one of their best linebackers, who's at Liberty. They're losing Luke Meyer, who's over at Air Force. They're losing Mitchell Bigelow, who was one of their best DBs and did a really good job over there. So they're losing a lot of players, but what they're gaining is pretty big, including head coach of Chatfield, Brett McGowan, who actually won a state championship at Chatfield last year, and I have a lot of faith in him. After going to Media Day, I have a lot of faith in Valor Christian. I think they could really turn up this year and prove the haters wrong, including us. I'm just going to be honest with you. But Got a couple guys here, including Trey Stott. He's going to be a top 5 safety, probably top 3, top 2 safety in the entire state. One of the lone returners on defense, along with Brody Bleak. I believe that's how you say it. 6'3", 270-pound interior defensive lineman. He's going to be an absolute beast. Plus, I think he'll be on the offensive line as well. Speaking of offensive line, you also have Tanner Morley, who's going to CSU. He already committed. I believe he said he's playing on the interior and not tackle, or maybe it's the other way around, but he's going to be a beast. Then you have Gabe Sawchuk. He's going to turn up this year, I believe. And then you have 3-star quarterback Asher Weiner here, Weiner, whatever it is. Excuse me if I say that wrong. Who's going to have to play like a 3-star for them to live up to this 2 spot here. As, the whole team is going to have to. Cody, what do you think about Valor Christian? You had the viral TikTok about Valor that went viral, but both of us felt pretty good about this team after Media Day. And, we're feeling them.
Well, I think that something that's funny to think about is I like looking at our recent Media Day TikTok where everyone is like, bro, there's no way that anyone on Valor is under like 25 years old, talking about what they have in the trenches. And I think that, the reputation that Valor has is something that teams heading in to play Valor, like for Valor, it's just another game. And this was kind of brought up at Media Day, but for other teams, like it's big, bad Valor, right? And I think that gets to teams, and a lot of teams lose before they even start. So, Valor's ability to just maintain, poise and composure and treat it business as usual is going to provide a lot of support for them this year. And I think having a way more personable coach like McGatlin is going to go a long ways. I think that it's going to set up Valor very, very well for the long term. I think that he's a guy who can stick around for a while. I think that he's a guy who doesn't mind taking some heat, but he's also one of just the best offensive minds in football. I mean, dude, that Chatfield offense was crazy last year, and they didn't even have a guy who really threw the ball. So, the fact that they'll be exciting and it won't be dive, tackle, off, tackle, dive, that's going to make Valor a better team this year. So,
yeah, I feel like I might have defended Valor a lot in that Media Day TikTok, which is crazy. But, I really like McGatlin. I think he'll get this team right. And these players here, I mean, look, obviously they're Valor, but you still got something to prove. You haven't won state yet. None of these players have won state. The only one who's won state is McGatlin, and I think he could get them back there and potentially be one of the biggest threats to Creek. But we'll see. Like you said, Cody, every team's going to come ready to take their shot. No team is going to be that intimidated. I feel like there's going to be a lot of teams that are like, yo, Valor? Just see the list of guys I just listed. They're on the downswing, so everyone's ready to take a swing at them, and no one's going to feel bad if they don't do well. So it's going to be up to Valor to pick each other up and lead each other. So we'll see. I think they could do it, but we'll see. You got to win games, and you got to prove people wrong first, though. So there you go. But Cody, I think this might be one of the most obvious number ones next to our 2A number one, but go ahead and take it away.
Thank goodness it's like the last team that we're really, really talking about. But I mean, they need no introduction. Back-to-back champs, Cherry Creek. Best coach in Colorado high school football history, Dave Logan. Obviously, he's back this season. Graduating seniors, I mean, you're losing talent. They do every year. They're losing George Fitzpatrick to Ohio State. They're losing Coyote Jr. to CSU. They're losing Henry Lamar and Tyler Tolbert. And Sam Pezdertz, who went to Missouri Western. They're losing Caleb Perea, who's at CSU Pueblo. Christian Hammond won't be under center. That's the biggest question mark this entire team has. But who isn't coming back is, who's not coming back is easier topic. Because defensively, 4-star recruit Blake Purchase comes back. 18 tackles for loss, 83 tackles, batted a ton of passes. Look, I can't even go through all the stats. Chase Brackney's coming back. Gus Zelinskis is coming back. Logan Brantley is coming back. Look, this entire defense is like basically Division One, and this doesn't even address, guys who switched over to defense like Marte Russell. You have the backfield that's returning Carlson Tan and Arion Boyd, who, were very constant in the backfield. Jordan Herron, as a class of 24 guy, was constant. They're returning a ton of offensive linemen. They're going to be big up front this year on both sides of the ball. They're also going to have Ishmael Cece, who's probably, he has the potential to be a 1,000-yard receiver. He's one of the best receivers in the state. He looks even more crisp following this offseason. Look, as it stands right now, they have 3 of the top 5 recruits in the 23 class and 5 of the top 12, which is hilariously ahead of every other program in the state. They also have 2 3-star linemen in the class of 2024, and this doesn't even include Angelo Petrides, who is in the middle of this defense and one of the leading tacklers last year, who's already been offered to CU. At the time of projecting their schedule, I hadn't even looked at their schedule and said that they're going to be in state. Their most interesting game, I think, this season, they obviously have the opener against Ralston Valley, and then they face out-of-state talent again this year. Look, worst case scenario, they're 9-1 and they three-peat. Or, they end up losing in state. Worst case scenario, they end up losing in state. But they should probably three-peat.
I know you didn't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to pick up here as well. They are also bringing in Exodus Johnson from Arapahoe, who, oh my God, is good. This is as good as this D1 defensive line could be. By the way, let me just go ahead and list the commitments of some of these guys here. Except for Blake Purchase, because I don't think he's committed. But Logan Brantley, linebacker, going to Kansas, I believe. Chase Brackney, Iowa.
Yeah.
Hank Zelinskas going to CU. He just committed. Marte Russell, he has a D1 offer. Blake Purchase, obviously the 4-star, has a million D1 offers. Power 5.
Didn't even talk about Javion Smith Combs, 6'6".
Yes, their most underrated player is a 6'6", 230, 240 pound. I don't know how much he weighs, but he's a big boy. Defensive end, outside linebacker, who is going to get in as a rotational player as a senior, because that's just what Cherry Creek does. And he's probably going to earn himself some offers when all is said and done. Also, you have Aiden Napke as a freshman, considered the best freshman safety in the entire state. Plus, one of the best safeties in the entire state.
Simon, are you muted on the stream?
No, why? Are you good? Well, I don't know if Cody is good, but I'm definitely not muted on the stream. Regardless, they got a million players. Obviously, quarterback is going to be a big question, but they got a lot of guys who, they got guys that they're going to rotate in. Peep the media day clip that we dropped. Logan basically said they're going to try a couple different quarterbacks, and eventually, I'm sure they're going to figure out something by a playoffs, which isn't even that big of a deal. But for now, you don't
have to be a 2-star guy to win a state championship with this team, bro.
Yeah, they'll start whoever, and they'll probably still make it to state because of how good this defense is, plus the running backs, and everyone else as well. So this Cherry Creek team, they are stacked. They are legit. Not only are they D1 talent, but they are Power 5 talent riddled. I don't know how else you got to beat that. Also, plus their line. Shout out to Estrella, Max Parrott, all these guys. AJ, they're stacked, absolutely stacked. It is going to be a tall order for any team in 5A to beat them. And even then, you have to play your best game against Cherry Creek. Because even Cherry Creek's worst game is still going to be a challenge for most teams, to be honest with you. And they really don't have many down games. So there you go. I can't think of the last time they did. But anyways, our final preseason power rankings for 5A here. Obviously, we're going to update these every week. At number 9/10, it's tied Fairview, Arvada West. After that, at 8, we have Thunder Ridge. 7, Ralston Valley. 6, Pine Creek. 5, Grandview. 4, Columbine. 3, Regis Jesuit. 2, Valor Christian. 1, Cherry Creek. Cody, do you mind if I talk about my personal rankings first and then hand it off to you?
You mind if I talk, because my phone is just glitching out a little bit, so I'm afraid of not hearing the transition after you.
Yeah, go for it. You're good.
Cool. My phone is like so hot right now. I'm surprised it's not melting the plastic thing that's holding it. But anyways, my rankings are pretty on brand with this. 1 Creek, 2 Valor. A little bit of a difference. I have Columbine at 3, Regis at 4, Grandview at 5. The top 5, pretty interchangeable. I have Ralston Valley at 6. I'm pretty high on their new coach and the direction that this team can go, along with the athletes that they have. 7, I have Pine Creek, like right next to where they normally are. I have Arvada West 8, Thunder Ridge 9, Fairview 10. I have Arvada West just a little bit ahead because of the offense that I think they have more proven thus far than Thunder Ridge, and Fairview here at 9 and 10. I then have Rock Canyon at 11, Fossil Ridge at 12. Fossil Ridge, Tyler Kubat, going to be one of the best passers this year. Not sure if that's how you say his name, but that offense is going to be absurd this year. Rock Canyon, a little bit of the opposite. They're going to be able to run the ball really well, and they have a lot going on in their trenches. Mountain Vista, number 13, led by a solid offense. Then I have Mullen, number 14, and I think that they're going to win their league this year. They're in a new league this year. I think it's a very winnable one. Then I have Castleview here at number 15. Mambo number 15. Back to you, Simon.
Okay, bet.
Sorry, I'm spitting fast because my phone is seriously chunging.
Okay, you're good. Anyways, my personal preseason rankings. Number 1, Cherry Creek. Number 2, Regis. Number 3, Valor. Number 4, Grandview. Number 5, Pine Creek. Number 6, Columbine. Number 7, Thunder Ridge. Number 8, Ralston Valley. Number 2, Fairview. And then at 10, I actually had Rock Canyon, but Arvada West beat them out. So there you go there. I think Rock Canyon is actually going to be really good. Have a stud in Aiden Duda. Have another stud in DeAndre Horn. And then have a very good defense, you know. I think that's a team that's probably going to make our top 10 sooner than later. Wouldn't be surprised there. Speaking of teams that will probably make our top 10, Mountain Vista, they'll probably make an appearance. They're just out at 11. I have concerns about their line, you know, compared to some of these other big boy lines here. You know, there could be some problems, but offensively, they're going to be explosive. At 12, I got Mullen. I just need to see them win games, to be honest with you. At 13, I have Fountain Fort Carson. They're going to have a good defense, plus they have some experience there. 14, Fossil Ridge. 15, Arvada West. We'll see if they can move up or down. So there you go. 16, Castleview. 17, Douglas County. 18, I went Eagle Crest, then Rocky Mountain, Smoky Hill, Pomona, Horizon, Doherty at 23, then Cherokee Trail at 24. Obviously, these are due to change pretty soon here. We'll just have to see. You know, I mean, teams got to win games, and there's going to be plenty of battles in the top 10, and there's going to be plenty of battles to get teams into the top 10, but we will see. I think it's very agreeable right now. Top 3 teams for sure: Cherry Creek, Regis, Valor, per usual, you know, but anything could happen. Any team could lose, you know. We'll just have to see what goes down. But that basically wraps up our 2022 Colorado preseason power rankings. Like we said, we're going to update these every single week on our daily recaps, so be on the lookout for those. If you are just joining us, you can find this full live stream probably on Twitch. The whole thing will be there. You can watch it there. But we will upload this eventually on YouTube, hopefully by tomorrow, and then it should be on all major streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, stuff like that, if you want to check it out there. But just now we are showing clips on this podcast as well. I apologize for all the technical difficulties. This is kind of a long stream, so I've been producing it while also talking. Same with Cody. You know, we don't have a third guy. Not really. And this is probably a good spot to also say that it will just be mostly me and Cody on the podcast for this season. We do have an intern. Shout out to our guy Gideon. He will be attending a lot of games up north, you know, but he is an intern. We don't want to put too much on him, as we have decided, and it was mutual, to part ways with our guy Mason. He will be doing bigger and great things. So yeah, but just wanted to shout that out because I feel like some people don't understand that it's just you and me, Cody. So yeah, I feel like now was as good as as good as a time to reveal it as any. Are you good, Cody?
You're just like turning robotic. My phone is just on life support as far as processing power goes. But I got the gist of what you said.
Well, good thing it's mostly for listeners, but let me go ahead and wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for rocking with us. Go ahead and follow us on social media at Playmakers Corner on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're also on TikTok. A lot of clips posting there. Plus, I'm hoping to post some TikToks of us going to games, which we will be going to a lot of games this week. For me or for us, we got Denver South and Skyline on Thursday. Then on Friday, I'm going to Dakota Ridge versus Pueblo West down in Pueblo. Should be hype. I'm also going to a game on Saturday. I just haven't figured out which one that will be. Cody, I believe, will probably go to Regis Jesuit Valor on Friday. So there you go. If you see us, say hi, whatnot. We love meeting fans and whatnot. So that'll be hype. So make sure you follow us there. Plus, our watch list will be done tomorrow. Cornerbacks, safeties. It goes down tomorrow, so be on the lookout there. You can follow us, like I said, on Playmakers Corner. Linktree's there. And then go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube, Twitch. Follow us, subscribe to us, Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well, to listen for more, as we will be doing daily, or not daily, weekly recaps of these games, plus other content like interviews and stuff like that. So, yeah. Cody, any last words?
Thank you if you stuck around for 4 hours. Good night.
Peace.